Welcome back. Some people climb to the top not through talent or luck, but through ruthless tricks that tilt the game in their favour. A fake smile, a whispered word, or a quiet backstab can be enough to change everything. These aren't accidents, they're patterns, and they work whether you notice them or not. Tonight, we'll uncover the tricks that really run beneath the surface. So get comfortable because this is going to be a long one. It looks like a warm handshake. Under the table, there's a tripwire. The Backstab Trick wears the costume of loyalty, agreement, praise, helpful offers, while quietly cutting your footing when you turn away. It starts by mirroring you, speaking your language, volunteering to take things off your plate. That access becomes information. Then, in a different room, the story shifts into small concerns and clarifications offered as care. Nothing dramatic, just careful edits to your reputation, one soft slice at a time. Psychologically, it runs on reciprocity and impression management. Flattery buys trust. I'm on your side lowers your guard. Once a tiny doubt is planted in someone else's mind, confirmation bias does the rest. They start noticing moments that fit the new story. The trickster keeps plausible deniability by sounding protective. They never say you failed. They say they're just safeguarding the team. Here's what it looks like in the wild. A co-worker gushes about your draft, calls it strong and thoughtful. Then they message the manager with a quick heads up about risks you might not have seen, copying you for transparency. They've praised you in public and positioned themselves as the guardrail in private. If the project lands, they were supportive. If it wobbles, they were the responsible one. Either way, your standing shrinks and theirs expands. Watch for patterns, not one-offs. Agreement that comes too quickly. Praise that is generous but vague. Being kept close, yet oddly out of certain loops. Secrets dressed as favours. Just between us, comments that later surface as group wisdom. Apologies that redirect blame to the process. The defining move is triangulation, talking about you to others more than talking with you. You do not beat this with drama. You beat it with daylight. Move important conversations back into shared spaces. That sounds important. Let's loop the team so we can align. Ask for specifics. Which part is risky? Redirect the triangle. Let's discuss this together. Put agreements in writing so facts outlast whispers. Share enough to collaborate. Not everything that can be weaponized. Match words to patterns. If they don't match, trust the pattern. When you need to address it, name behaviors, not motives. Calm, clear, brief. I want feedback directly, not third-hand corrections. Then keep building broad trust through consistent delivery so a single whisper has nowhere to land. This isn't about paranoia, it's about clarity. Real loyalty shows when you're not in the room. Choose allies who protect your name like their own. And if you've drifted into this tactic yourself, know that short-term status trades away long-term trust. Influence built on erosion collapses. Keep your back straight, your notes clear, and your circle chosen by behavior, not charm. Name the pattern, pull back the curtain, and the backstab trick loses its blade. A warm laugh, a shared gripe, a coffee they remembered exactly right. Meanwhile, a quiet calculator clicks behind the smile. The fake friend trick looks like closeness, sounds like loyalty, and feels like relief. Someone steps into your world fast, mirroring your slang, your rhythms, your frustrations. They offer belonging on credit. And then, when the bill comes due, you realize the currency was your access, your ideas, your good name. This move thrives on speed. When connection accelerates past context, your guard cannot keep up. The flattery is thick, the favours are generous, and the bond is framed as fate. They confide secrets early to make you feel chosen, but their confessions are curated, hook bait, not heart truth. Soon, you are sharing more than you intended. They position themselves as a bridge to rooms you want to enter, then walk across that bridge alone, carrying your insights as luggage. In practice, it shows up as borrowed credibility. They quote you without the introduction that credits you, or they loop your name into conversations you are not in to legitimize their pitch. They ask for your read on a sensitive situation, then present your analysis as their prudent caution. They volunteer to champion your work, and what arrives on the other side is thinner, altered, and attributed elsewhere. To keep you pliable, they alternate warmth and distance. Intense enthusiasm one day, silence the next, so you work harder to regain the glow. Red flags are subtle but consistent. Intimacy that outruns history. Praise that inflates you while isolating you from others. Favours that come with a quiet ledger. Stories that shift depending on the audience. Private closeness paired with public vagueness. A constant sense of being managed, not met. You do not have to harden to be safe. Slow the tempo. Real trust grows at a human pace. Keep important updates in shared spaces where versions cannot drift. When asked for help, name your boundary and the exchange. I am happy to weigh in if you include my name with the recommendation. When they invoke your words, ask directly to be in the room where those words are being used. If that is somehow awkward, that is your answer. Test with small stakes. Offer a modest opportunity and see if they reciprocate or reroute. Protect the parts of your story that can be repackaged, contacts, strategy, early drafts, until the pattern of care is clear. When you need to step back, be calm and plain. I value friendliness, but I am looking for relationships where credit and care go both ways. This is not an invitation to cynicism. It is a commitment to clarity. Real friends advocate for you when you cannot hear them. Choose the people who return what they borrow, who speak your name with respect, who grow slower than a performance but sturdier than a trick. Your calendar pings, your file vanishes, and someone apologizes with a smile too perfect to trust, that uneasy feeling in your gut. It is your instincts whispering that the mess is not random. It is manufactured. This is the sabotage trick, and it is as old as ambition, sharpened by people who prefer climbing over others to climbing with them. Here is how it works. A saboteur creates tiny, deniable disruptions that slow you down, make you miss, and nudge you into looking unreliable. They do not topple the tower in one crash. They loosen a few screws and wait for gravity. A misaddressed email that never reaches the client. A meeting moved without telling you. A deck printed with the outdated version right before the presentation. A password reset that conveniently happens when you are about to demo. Each slip is small enough to shrug off, but together they sculpt a story. You cannot get it together. Their favourite tools are plausible accidents and helpfulness with strings. They volunteer to share files, then send you the wrong link. They offer to book the room, then somehow choose the one that gets double booked. They forward you a draft at the last minute and say they assumed you had the final. If you protest, you look paranoid. If you accept it, you carry the blame. Why does it work so well? Because most people judge by patterns, not post-mortems. We want to trust our colleagues, so we rationalize each hiccup. Maybe the software glitched. Maybe you misread the thread. Maybe the printer is cursed. Meanwhile, The saboteur speaks softly around the edges. They sigh that you are under a lot of pressure. They gently offer to step in next time. They position themselves as the stable alternative while you are mopping up messes they quietly set. You can spot it by the fingerprints of intention on accidents. The same person seems to be around every time something small goes wrong. Problems happen when you cannot easily verify the chain. There is always a story that almost fits, and they are first to tell it. They apologize with speed, but not with solutions. They are careful never to be the only link between you and your work, yet their touch lingers on crucial steps. So what do you do without turning into a detective with a corkboard and red string? You make sabotage unprofitable. You design your process like a building with fire doors. Share critical files through redundant channels. Confirm meeting times and locations in writing and keep the thread tidy. Time-stamp handoffs with simple, friendly summaries. When someone offers to help with a crucial piece, thank them and mirror it back. Great. I will also drop the final into the shared folder and send the client a direct note. You are not accusing. You are removing the single point of failure. Adopt the principle of visible work. Narrate your progress lightly and consistently. I am uploading the draft now. I will send the confirmation after lunch. I have the latest spreadsheet from yesterday's email. This is not performance theatre. It is a paper trail that makes stray hands think twice and gives honest people clarity. If something still goes sideways, the map is there and the map speaks for you. Be wary of forced urgency. Saboteurs love a rushed environment where details get sloppy. When someone presses you to cut corners, breathe and ask the quiet questions. What is the exact deadline? Who else is looped? Which version are we using? Slowing the tempo by a beat frustrates those who rely on chaos to cover their tracks. When the pattern becomes clear, avoid the trap of dramatic confrontation. Saboteurs thrive on flipping the script, making you look reactive. Instead, escalate facts, not feelings. Here are the messages confirming the file. Here is the calendar invite that was changed. Here are the repeated discrepancies when X handles the handoff. You are documenting outcomes, not assigning motives. This protects you and puts the behavior on record where it belongs. Also, remember the social layer. Build strong ties with people who can vouch for your work. When others see your consistency, one whisper does not become a chorus. Offer help in ways that create transparency and invite it in return. The best shield against a saboteur is a team culture where sunlight is normal and bottlenecks are rare. Sabotage is a fungus. It hates fresh air. Ask yourself a hard question too. Have you ever benefited from a small failure that was not yours? Most of us are not villains, but we can be tempted to look the other way when a convenient mistake happens to help our story. Reject that shortcut. It is never small, not really. The same knife you tolerate in the kitchen will eventually point your way. There is strength in calm competence. When something falls apart, fix it without theatrics, then quietly make it impossible to repeat. If someone keeps orbiting your tasks with convenient blunders, shrink their sphere of influence. If you must work with them, make every joint step explicit. If you can choose, reroute critical paths away from them. You are not being petty, you are being safe. In the end, the sabotage trick feeds on two things, your silence and your scramble. Take away both. Speak clearly about the work. Slow down the moments that matter. Build systems that double-check. Teammates who cross-check. And habits that self-check. You do not need a war. You need a plan. And once you have it, the person who thrives on small failures will find no place to plant them. There's a quiet contract some people try to hand you, and you never signed it. It sounds like this: do what I want, or I'll let something slip. A text from a smug co-worker. A too casual comment from a neighbour who knows a little too much. These aren't requests, they're leashes. The blackmail trick is simple. Someone takes a secret, a mistake, or a messy moment and turns it into a remote control for your choices. It's not always a dramatic threat. Often it's a hint, a pause, a raised eyebrow that says, "Remember what I know." The point isn't truth, it's leverage. And the antidote begins by seeing the move for what it is, not what it pretends to be. Name the maneuver, and the fog thins. Psychologically, this is a pressure play rooted in fear and shame, the fastest shortcuts to compliance in human behaviour. Here's what it looks like in real life. You're at work, and a new manager slides over. "Hey, about that offhand comment at the team dinner, I'm sure it was nothing. Maybe you could help me with the weekend shift so we keep things smooth." You freeze. They smile. Or a friend says, "I still have those screenshots, don't worry. You're safe with me." Then they start asking for favours you'd never agree to if the air weren't so thick. These small scenes matter because you can hear your options narrowing in your own head. "It's fine. I'll just do it once." Maybe it goes away. That inner voice is exactly what the trick aims to capture. Why does it work? Fear of loss eclipses almost everything. Reputation, belonging, the illusion of control threaten those, and people will trade integrity for relief. The trick also exploits isolation. If they keep you alone with the secret, they keep you guessing, and guessing breeds compliance. Add a dash of ambiguity, no clear ask, just vibes, and your brain fills in the threat, often harsher than reality. Psychologically, that's the genius of coercion. It lets your own imagination do the heavy lifting. When someone feels cornered, they stop weighing long-term costs and sprint towards short-term safety. That is how leverage steals your choices, one yes at a time. So how do you break the spell? First, slow the moment down and put the dynamic into words, calmly, plainly. It sounds like you're asking me to do X because you're hinting you might share Y. I won't agree to that. Naming the move is disarming because it yanks the game into daylight. It lowers the fuzzy threat and raises your sense of agency. Second, get specific. Ask, "What exactly are you asking me to do?" Vague pressure thrives in the shadows. Specificity starves it. Third, widen the circle. Document the exchange. Loop in a neutral third party, a mentor, or a formal channel if needed. Coercion hates witnesses. The most counterintuitive move is often the most powerful. Shrink the secret. If it's yours to tell, consider owning it in your words, to your people. A secret loses weight when you stop letting someone else hold it for you. If full disclosure isn't right, even saying, "I'm comfortable with my choices being known," signals the end of the leash. That doesn't mean you broadcast your life. It means you refuse to rent your silence to someone else's agenda. And if the threat crosses lines, treat it like the misconduct it is. You are not negotiating. You are documenting. You are not bargaining. You are drawing boundaries. Each clear sentence is a step out of the fog. Each witness you bring in is a light turned on. The goal isn't to win a power game. It's to stop playing one. Remember the pattern. Coercion is fast. Integrity is steady. Coercion isolates. Integrity invites support. Coercion bluffs. Integrity names. When you feel that quiet contract being slid across the table, don't pick up the pen. Your choices belong to you, not to the person who wants to spend your fear like currency. And when you choose daylight over leverage, you don't just protect a secret. You protect the part of you that should never be up for trade, your ability to decide clearly what you will and will not do. That clarity is your leverage now, and it's rooted in understanding the human beats behind pressure, fear, and courage. Your downfall might begin as a question mark at the end of someone else's sentence. That soft, almost caring tone, that raised eyebrow, that little pause before a name. The Whisper Campaign trick feeds on these tiny moments because it does not need a bullhorn to wreck a reputation. It only needs half-truths, delivered gently, repeated often, and left to bloom in the minds of people who think they are too smart to be fooled. Here is how it works. Someone selects a target and finds a detail with a kernel of truth. Maybe you missed a deadline once. Maybe you were late to one meeting. Maybe you had a sharp exchange in a busy week. Then the whisper starts with a concern, not an accusation. Is she doing okay? I heard the workload was getting to her. It sounds helpful, almost kind. The listener repeats it, adding colour. By the time it returns to you, it is a story with chapters you do not recognise. Whispers spread because they feel safe. There is no email to forward, no message to screenshot, only a vibe. And our brains love vibes. We trust what is repeated. We guard against blatant lies. But a small sliver of truth wrapped in a sigh slips in. The trickster knows this. They choose times when you are not in the room, moments after a meeting, unsupervised corners of a group chat, any space where a shrug can travel farther than a fact. You can see it in the air if you look closely. People stop asking you direct questions about your work, but ask others about you. A colleague who used to be concise now over-explains simple things as if coaching you. Compliments grow odd. Great job, considering everything. That phrase, considering everything, hangs like a fog. You hear the same vague opener again and again. People are saying, I heard, I am not sure if it is my place. The words are flimsy, but the repetition is heavy. Do not meet fog with fog. Meet it with sunlight and structure. When someone brings you a whisper, ask for precision. What exactly did you hear? From whom? When? Say it calmly without heat, and watch how quickly the story evaporates when it needs a spine. Then give a brief anchor to the truth. That is not accurate. The timeline was this. The deliverables were these, and here is where we stand. Speak it once, simply, and return to the work. The trickster wants you to defend yourself loudly and endlessly. Refuse that play. You are building a reputation for precision, not panic. Protect the edges of your name. Keep clean records. Confirm decisions in writing with friendly summaries. Loop the room after big choices, so there is less space for improvisation later. When something goes sideways, acknowledge it quickly and describe the fix. The fastest way to starve a rumour is to be the first and clearest source on your own facts. There is a more counterintuitive move too. Name the tactic without naming the person. You can say, I have noticed some second-hand stories floating around about the Q4 launch. Let's keep feedback direct and documented. I am available for any questions. That small declaration changes the social cost. It signals that whispers will be treated as noise, not oxygen. If you are in a leadership seat, set a norm that rumours are not feedback. Create an explicit path for concerns with time, place, and accountable owners. Praise people who bring information to the right place. Pair your standards with visible fairness. The more predictable your process, the less fuel a whisper can find. When you are the target, remember that isolation is the goal of this trick. Do the opposite. Strengthen 3 relationships that see your work up close. Share what you're doing, what you are learning, and what is next. Momentum is the best rebuttal. People will remember who showed up, not who speculated. A whisper campaign collapses when it cannot hide behind kindness. Strip it of its costume. Ask for specifics. Say the truth once, cleanly. Keep building. Your reputation is not fragile glass. It is a wall laid brick by brick. Whispers cannot knock down a wall that is reinforced daily by clarity, consistency, and work that speaks for itself. The fastest way to own a room is not to be the loudest voice. It is to be the door handle everyone has to touch. That is the Gatekeeper Trick. You do not have to outrun the competition if you stand between the competition and the finish line. The game is simple. Control access to a person, a resource, or a moment, and the world has to knock before it moves. Here is how it shows up. Someone volunteers to schedule everything, and suddenly all decisions wait for their calendar. Someone creates the application form, and suddenly they decide who even gets seen. Someone offers, "Let me make the introduction," and suddenly every relationship routes through their inbox. They position it as helping, organizing, streamlining. They are not lying, but the real value is that they now hold keys, and the keys become leverage. The psychology underneath is ancient. Scarcity makes people lean in. Social proof makes them wait for permission. Reciprocity makes them feel indebted to the gatekeeper for simply opening the door. Status turns a middleman into an authority, because if you hold the threshold, you start to look like the destination. Even risk gets outsourced. People defer to the gatekeeper so they do not have to own a bad outcome. And once that habit sets in, a bottleneck becomes a throne. If you want to use this trick, the most elegant move is to stand where demand meets friction. Be the person who organizes the pipeline, curates the shortlist, or runs the intake. Offer clarity, offer guardrails, offer relief, then hold the map. You do not announce power, you become infrastructure. The project cannot move without your green light, and yet everyone thanks you for speeding things up. You are polite, responsive, and slightly unavailable. You never say no. You say, "Here is what needs to happen first." If you want to spot it before you get trapped, watch for subtle rewrites of the path. Is there a new form where a simple email would do? Does everything now require looping someone in? Are there rules that always seem to need an exception? And who grants that exception? Do you notice people waiting instead of doing? That is the sound of a door closing quietly. There are sharper versions too. Some gatekeepers hoard information. They shorten summaries, then expand them only in private. They insist on being in every meeting, then control the pre-meeting and the recap. They turn introductions into favors, and favors into tabs you can never fully pay. They police tone, not truth, so that challenging them feels impolite. All of this is power without having to own outcomes. If something fails, it was the process. If something succeeds, it passed their bar. So what do you do when the door is not yours? Build a side entrance. Gather the information the gatekeeper monopolizes and share it openly. Create a clean standard everyone can use, so decisions do not need a personal blessing. Strengthen direct relationships with people on the other side of the door, respectfully, transparently, and on the record. If the gate exists for a good reason, meet the criteria quickly and document that you have. If the gate exists to create dependency, reduce that dependency by empowering others to move without permission. If you must go through a gatekeeper, manage the dynamic on purpose. Ask for clear requirements and timelines in writing. Offer options instead of open questions. Confirm next steps, then follow up with precision. You are training the door to swing. Do not argue with the hinge. Focus on the mechanism. When you remove the ambiguity they use as leverage, you minimize the toll. There's also an ethical way to be a gatekeeper. Filtering chaos is valuable. Curating quality is valuable. The difference is transparency. Publish criteria, set response times, give people alternative paths. Be accountable for the calls you make. A fair gate protects standards. An unfair gate protects status. If people feel safer and faster because you stand there, you are doing it right. If they feel smaller and slower, you are extracting, not serving. Remember, control of access, compound interest. Every small moment you own today becomes a default tomorrow. A calendar today becomes a committee tomorrow. A template today becomes a policy tomorrow. That is why this trick is ruthless in the hands of people who only want leverage. And that is why it is powerful in the hands of people who build ladders, not walls. Choose your position with intent. Ask yourself, where is the door in this situation? And who is touching the handle? If it is you, be clear and fair. If it is someone else, decide whether to meet their terms, redesign the path, or find another building. Power flows to whoever decides when things move. Speak softly, hold keys, or learn to pick locks. And never forget the quiet truth: the gatekeeper knows best. Motion is permission, and permission belongs to whoever stands at the threshold. They roll out a red carpet that quietly ends in a trap door. That is the bait and switch. It begins with something shiny and simple, then shifts once you've said yes, signed up, or stepped inside. It is not always illegal. It is often just calculated. Promise the moon, deliver a flashlight, and count on you being too committed or too tired to back out. Here is how it plays out in real life. A manager talks about autonomy, growth, and big impact projects. You accept. On day one, your lead role turns into endless admin and a moving target of goals. A contractor quotes a friendly price to start, then introduces unexpected adjustments halfway through. A subscription offers a free trial with full features. Then the moment you import your data, the features you came for get paywalled. The switch happens after you are emotionally and practically invested. Psychologically, the trick leans on commitment and consistency, sunk cost thinking, and loss aversion. When we say yes publicly, we feel pulled to be consistent with that first yes. When we invest time or money, we hate the idea of losing it, even if walking away would be wiser. And once we envision the benefit, the thought of missing out makes us cling harder. That is why the turn happens late, after your momentum makes no feel heavier than yes. Naming these forces out loud helps you see the trap before it closes. The defense is not cynicism. It is clarity, not suspicion of every person, but precision in every promise. If a deal sounds generous, slow it down. Ask for a plain language summary of the exact deliverable, the timeline, the total cost, and what conditions can trigger a change. Then ask the crucial follow-up. What will remain true after I've paid, signed, or moved my data? If they dodge, minimize, or tell you it's just standard, that is a tell. If they get specific and put it in writing, you are on safer ground. One simple move protects you more than bravado. Write their promise in a single sentence and read it back to them. Say it calmly. I want to make sure I understand. You said the first month includes unlimited access to all features with the same price for the next 12 months and no extra onboarding fees. Is that correct? If they agree, send an email with that sentence and ask them to confirm. This takes minutes and saves months. When the switch appears, pause. Do not argue the whole story. Name the change, then draw a clear boundary. This is different from what was promised. I am happy to proceed on the original terms, but I am not comfortable with the new ones. That phrasing does three things at once. It brings the conversation back to the promise. It keeps your tone grounded, and it gives them a simple path to honour their word. People are more cooperative when they feel heard and when the request is precise. Clarity lowers defensiveness and raises the chance of a fair fix. If they double down, you are being shown the real cost. It is not just money, it is trust. Walk away while you still can. A good partner respects your boundary and mirrors your clarity. A bad one complains you are being difficult because you will not pay extra for their surprise. There is a reframe worth carrying with you. It is not about being tough. It is about being steady. Not battle mode, but bright light mode. You are not trying to win every negotiation. You are trying to make every agreement honest. That shift changes your posture from reactive to intentional. It turns a tempting shortcut into a simple checklist. Slow down, spell it out, get it in writing, and be willing to leave. This kind of steady, psychology-backed approach is what makes tools like Name the Change and Restate the Original Promise work. It harnesses how people respond to clear, fair requests rather than vague pushback. The bait and switch thrives on speed and fog. You break it by adding time and light. Ask the question no one expects. What stays the same after I say yes? Then listen to how they answer. The right people step closer. The wrong ones show themselves. Either way, you keep your footing. A ticking timer is not a heartbeat. It just wants one. The pop-up screams last chance. The cart whispers only 3 left, and your pulse does exactly what it's trained to do when something might slip away. That is the fake scarcity trick. Invent a rush. Compress your thinking and cash in on your fear of missing out. Not because the offer is great, but because the clock is loud. Picture this. You're on your lunch break, scrolling. When a friend texts, you have to grab this before midnight. There's a flashing banner, a countdown, and a line that reads, "Doors close in 1 hour." Your mind tightens. You are suddenly choosing between acting now or losing forever. Then the voice of calm barely gets a vote. Let me show you what it looks like in real life, because this is where the trick works best, inside ordinary moments like this. Psychologically, fake scarcity piggybacks on 2 forces. First, our brains overweigh losses compared to gains, so the idea of missing out hits harder than the idea of choosing well. Second, urgency narrows attention. It feels like clarity, but it's actually a tunnel. In that tunnel, you notice the ticking louder than the details that matter, like refund policies, alternatives, or whether you even want the thing. You don't need academic jargon to see it. Just notice how your thinking changes the instant a clock appears. A quick nod to the science helps here. When we name what's happening, it's easier to step out of it. Here's the move behind the move. They don't need proof. You need it. They only need you moving fast enough not to ask questions. So they stack phrases like limited run, early bird ends tonight, and waitlist closes after midnight. The tactic is not to inform you. It's to accelerate you. Not to create value, but to create velocity. That contrast is the whole game. Try this instead. When a countdown shows up, add your own countdown. Take 1 minute to breathe, 1 minute to check the facts, 1 minute to choose on purpose. Say out loud, if it's real, it will still be real after I breathe. Ask 3 simple questions. What would I decide tomorrow morning with fresh eyes? Who benefits most if I rush right now? What am I afraid of missing? And is that fear accurate? Often that small pause returns you to yourself. And from there, your decision changes shape. You might still buy, but you'll know why. Let's go back to that lunch break scene. You text your friend, "Looks good, but I'm not making a fast decision on a timer. If it's legit, I'll grab it after dinner." Now watch what happens when the clock runs out. Either the door magically extends, or a second deal appears, or the same offer cycles back next week with a new headline. You didn't miss your one shot. You dodged a trap. If you sell things ethically, here's a different path. Use real constraints, not pretend ones. Be transparent about quantities and timelines. When there's a true limit, maybe a small batch or a calendar boundary, say why it exists and stick to it. Trust grows when your clock is honest. In the long run, trust compounds faster than any weekend flash sale ever could. And if you're on the buying side, remember this language. I don't decide under timers. Email me the details. I will check back when I'm ready. It's firm without being combative. It returns the pace to something human. It keeps your attention wide enough to see the fine print, to compare, to opt out entirely. The fake scarcity trick wins by making time feel like an enemy. Reclaim time, and the trick falls apart. The truth is simple. Real opportunity does not disappear when you pause. Real value doesn't need a siren to prove it exists. Give yourself the grace of a breath, the courtesy of a question, and the kindness of a clear mind. When pressure says, now or never, answer with your own clock. Then choose. And if the offer wilts without the rush, it was never worth chasing in the first place. Power rarely storms the front door. It slips in through the cracks between people. One quiet remark to the right ear. One selective compliment. One nudge that makes two teammates start doubting each other instead of the person pulling the strings. That's the divide and conquer trick. You don't win by being bigger. You win by making everyone else feel smaller, separate, and suspicious. Here's how it shows up when you're not looking. A manager tells one person, "You're the only one I can trust to hit the deadline," and then tells someone else, "I covered for your mistakes again." Now two capable people are watching each other instead of watching the game. In a friend group, someone says, "I would invite you," but they said you'd make it awkward, planting a seed that guarantees the next hangout will be awkward. In a family, a sibling gets framed as the favourite, so every favour becomes a threat. The tactic is simple. Split the room into smaller rooms, then visit each one as the hero. Psychologically, this works because humans are wired to seek belonging and safety. When those feel at risk, we narrow our focus, protect our corner, and forget to check the bigger picture. A whisper that someone is unreliable, a hint that resources are scarce, or a hint of special access can pull people into defensiveness. Rooted in psychology and human behaviour, the manipulator leverages our instinct to side with whoever seems to secure our place and protect us from being left out. There's a tell. Conversations move from we to me versus them. Praise comes with a barb. Information stops being shared in the open. Meetings turn into pre-meetings, and pre-meetings turn into side texts during the meeting. Everyone is on edge, wondering what was said in the other room. That tension is the point. A divided group spends energy policing each other. A united group spends energy on the work. So what protects you? Start by naming the tactic without drama. Say, "I'm noticing we're being compared in a way that makes us compete for the same win." When you name it, you pull the trick into the light, and things in the light lose power. Then shift the dynamic from opposition to problem solving. If we both need the same resource, How do we schedule it so neither of us gets blindsided? That reframes the situation and stops the manipulator from positioning you as rivals who have to fight for crumbs. It puts you back on the same side, facing the real issue together. Second, reunify the room. If someone says, "Don't tell them I said this," your default move is, "Let's all talk about it together." Not by ambush, but with clarity. "I hear your concern. I'd like us to raise it openly so we can fix it." When people feel heard in front of each other, not just in private, cooperation returns because fear of misrepresentation fades. The more each person speaks for themselves, the less oxygen there is for rumour to grow. People are more cooperative and fair when they feel heard and addressed directly, not triangulated through a third party. Third, change how praise and feedback circulate. Private compliments that isolate are a wedge. Shared recognition is glue. If a leader says, "Only you can do this," redirect, "Thanks. Let's document the process so anyone on the team can step in." You're not rejecting the praise, you're refusing the pedestal that turns into a trap. And when criticism comes, place it in the open process. If there's a standard we're missing, let's write it down together so we all know what good looks like. That turns a shadow game into a visible system where standards, not favourites, decide outcomes. Finally, set a tone that punishes secrecy and rewards candour. Ask more questions. Make fewer assumptions. When someone drops a loaded comment, don't bite. Try. "What makes you say that?" Or, "Let's check that with them." The person trying to split the group will feel the door closing because your reflex is to reconnect, not retreat. It's not force that shuts down divide and conquer. It's daylight, shared language, and a consistent return to the common table where problems get named and solved together. The quiet power move isn't gathering allies in secret. It's refusing to be anyone's secret ally. When a group refuses the private pedestal and the private dagger, it becomes very hard to move them like chess pieces. Remember the rule: if someone keeps trying to pull you aside, bring people closer. That's how the cracks close. That's how control slips away from the one who needs you separate and back into the hands of the people who are strongest together. That's how you beat the divide and conquer trick. Ever notice how a compliment can feel like a lockpick? Someone smiles, tells you you're brilliant, and in the same breath asks for a favour that feels a little too big. That is not random charm. That is someone searching for the right key to the right door. The exploit weakness trick is simple, ruthless, and everywhere. It runs on one fuel: insecurity. If they can find what you're afraid of losing, ashamed of revealing, or desperate to prove, they can steer you. Here's how it works beneath the surface. First comes reconnaissance. They listen more than they talk at the start. They toss out safe questions, watch your face when a topic lands, and take mental notes about what lights you up and what shuts you down. Do you rush to fill silences? Do you defend your work before anyone critiques it? Do you brag a little about your productivity, your network, or your resilience? They are not judging, they are mapping. Next comes the probe, a casual tease about your timeline, a raised eyebrow when you mention your degree, a soft comparison to a rival. They are testing which button triggers heat. If you tense, explain, or overcorrect, the map gets clearer. The moment they feel your insecurity twitch, they wrap it in sugar. They switch to warmth and understanding. Now the pressure point feels like a shared secret. That is the lever. Then comes the turn. It sounds like, "I know you want to prove you can lead this," which is exactly why I think you should take on the tough client. Or you are the only one who cares enough to stay late and fix this for us. Or I would hate for anyone to see you as inexperienced, so let us keep this between us. Notice the pattern. Your insecurity is the bait. Their request is the hook. And the line is tied to your fear of confirming the very thing you want to avoid. Picture this at work. A colleague knows you are new and eager to be seen as indispensable. They plant the idea that senior folks are watching and then gift you the ugliest task on the floor. It is framed as an opportunity. Turning it down feels like admitting you are not a team player. Saying yes puts you in their debt. They have converted your private need for validation into leverage they can spend, or in relationships. A partner senses your fear of abandonment. They threaten distance without saying the words, becoming colder when you set a boundary and warmer when you give in. The insecurity does the steering. You start negotiating against yourself to prevent the chill. Or with friends, someone clocks your hunger to be in the circle. They joke about the group chat, drop compliments about your style, and then regularly ask you to do the organising, the driving, the paying. You accept because you are protecting your spot. You do not need to become paranoid, but you do need to become specific about your own weak spots. The strongest defence is knowing what you are tempted to prove. Are you trying to be seen as generous, smart, unshakable, loyal, fearless, humble? Say it out loud to yourself. When you can name the trigger, you can watch for hands reaching toward it. Here are the early tells of the exploit weakness trick. The person flatters, then escalates the ask. They test boundaries with tiny jabs and then soothe you after you react. They frame choices as moral verdicts, as if declining means you are selfish or small. They rush you to decide so you do not notice the leverage being built. They isolate you by saying, "Let us keep this between us," or "others would not understand." Each move narrows your options until compliance feels like the only way to stay safe. To break the spell, slow the tempo. Insecurity loves speed. Say, "I will think on that and get back to you." Silence returns power to you. Replace proving with deciding. Instead of, "I will show them I can handle anything," try, "I will choose what aligns with my energy, my values, and my role." Use clean, boring boundaries. "I do not discuss that. I am not available for that timeline. That is not my responsibility." No apology, no over-explanation. The more words you use, the more material they have to work with. Ask clarifying questions that remove the emotional fog. What specifically are you asking me to do? What happens if I say no? Who else is responsible here? What does success look like and who benefits? Clear questions force concrete answers, and concrete answers evaporate manipulation. Reframe shame in real time. If someone implies you are less than for setting a boundary, label the move. "That sounds like a pressure tactic," or "That comment seems designed to make me feel small, so I agree. I choose not to engage that way." Speak calmly without heat. The goal is not to win a fight. The goal is to keep your center. Strengthen your base by preempting leverage. Tell the truth about your limits before anyone can weaponize them. You can say, "I am still learning that, so here is the scope I can own." Or, "I care a lot about being reliable," which means I will not overcommit. Vulnerability on your terms is armor. It denies others the thrill of discovering and exploiting your soft spots. Finally, rethink what power is. Power is not doing everything asked of you to avoid judgment. Power is making aligned choices even when judgment arrives. If someone withdraws affection, opportunity, or approval when you stop feeding their leverage, that is not a loss. That is proof your boundary worked. A compliment should feel like a gift, not a leash. If it comes with strings, cut them. If a favour feels like a test of your worth, step out of the exam. Let people think what they will. Your value is not on auction. When you stop trying to quiet your insecurity by pleasing the wrong person, the exploit weakness trick collapses. The door they were trying to pick is already open because you have nothing to lock. Some wins are engineered in silence. A comment placed just right. A compliment delivered to the person who will repeat it. A problem framed so neatly that other people rush to solve it for you. You never step into the argument. You never raise your voice. Yet somehow, when the dust settles, your path is clear. That is the puppet master trick. Not control, not force, influence. You set the stage so that others, believing they are acting on their own, carry your agenda forward. It sounds cynical, and it can be, but it is also a study in how people tick, how stories spread, and how groups decide who and what gets momentum. Picture a team meeting. Maya wants the budget for a tool she prefers, but two colleagues, Raj and Elena, have a long-running disagreement about platforms. Before the meeting, Maya passes by Raj's desk and says, "I love how clean your pipeline has been. It proves your approach scales." Later, she checks in with Elena. "I know you care about stability. I keep hearing about outages with Raj's choice. It scares me for our clients." Two honest sentences, two different frames. During the meeting, she speaks early but briefly. "I trust both of you. We should do whatever is best for the client." Then she sits back. Raj hears, "Your approach scales," so he defends it passionately. Elena hears, "Outages and clients at risk," so she challenges it hard. Within minutes, they are quoting articles, recounting war stories, and appealing to the room. Maya has already CC'd the director on a pre-read that highlighted risk to client deadlines. When tension peaks, the director steps in. "We need reliability first." Maya nods and offers a calm suggestion. "We can pilot my tool as a safety net while we evaluate the other." She looks helpful, neutral, above the fray, and she gets her pilot. Psychologically, here is what just happened. Maya affirmed identity on both sides, which made each person feel seen and double down. When people feel their stance is recognized, they commit more strongly and defend it more publicly. Feeling heard boosts motivation and willingness to push, especially when status is on the line. She seeded a frame that invoked risk for one person and pride for the other. She elevated the conflict to an authority who was already primed by a memo. And she kept her own hands clean by speaking in values and letting the group fill in the details. Not pressure, but permission. Not orders, but a default that others choose. If you want to pull strings from the background, there is a rhythm. First, find the tension that already exists. Where opinions are near a tipping point, a light touch moves more than a heavy push. Then feed a frame, not a script. Give people a reason that resonates with their self-image or their fear, and step aside. Coast on social proof. If the room is already leaning, a subtle nod to risk or reputation tilts it. When a debate starts, do not own the conflict. Own the solution. Offer the option that sounds like balance, even if it is exactly where you wanted to land from the start. There is a darker version of this. People triangulate, whisper selectively, leak partial truths, amplify outrage, and time their helpful suggestions to the moment they are most desperately accepted. It works, especially in groups that reward speed over reflection, but it leaves a trail. The cost is trust. The more you win like this, the more people come to you out of fear, not respect. Eventually, the room will learn to ask, who benefits from us arguing right now? And the strings become visible. So use it with care, or better yet, learn to spot it and disarm it. Refuse triangles. When someone says, Elena is worried about outages, bring Elena into the conversation. Name the frame out loud. I hear we are nervous about risk. If we chase that fear, what do we lose? When you articulate the story someone is trying to run, you loosen its hold. Offer a shared principle early, like fairness, clarity, or client success, and ask how each option can serve that principle instead of fighting for ego. When people feel respected and understood, they are less likely to be lured into performing a position for the crowd and more likely to collaborate. In the end, the clever move is not to make people dance. It is to arrange the music so that choosing the right step feels natural. The Puppet Master trick is powerful because it understands people. The real mastery is deciding when to let the strings go. The room didn't tilt. Someone nudged the floor under your feet and then asked why you're stumbling. That's the Gaslight Trick. It's not about convincing you of a new truth. It's about eroding your grip on your own. The more you second-guess what you saw, heard, or decided, the easier you are to steer, and the faster someone else moves ahead while you stand still, dizzy and apologizing. Here is how it often starts. You remember locking the door. They smile and say, "Really?" You always forget. You recall them agreeing to a deadline. They frown and say, "I never said that." You describe a conversation that felt tense. They laugh and say, "You're too sensitive. The point isn't to win a debate. The point is to make you wonder whether your mind is the problem." If your memory is unreliable, then their version wins by default. At work, the Gaslight Trick can look like a colleague rewriting a meeting's history the moment it ends. You propose an idea, they dismiss it. A week later, they present that same idea as theirs, and when you speak up, they shake their head and say, "You must be mistaken. We all heard it my way." If you seem unsure, they gain credibility, and credibility is the currency that buys influence, projects, promotions. In relationships, it leans on intimacy to rewrite events. I didn't yell, you imagined it. I didn't promise, you're making things up again. The strategy is always the same. Scramble your inner compass until you ask them for directions. There are signature moves. They pretend confusion to force you to over-explain. Then use your extra words as proof you are dramatic. They present selective evidence that fits their story and ignore everything else, then accuse you of cherry-picking when you point it out. They bait you into a strong reaction, then freeze-frame your intensity to say, "Look how unstable you are." Sometimes it comes wrapped as concern. "I'm worried about you. Your memory has been off." Sometimes it is a joke that stings. "Relax, it was only a joke. Can't you take one?" The mask changes. The goal does not. To disarm it, you do not have to fight louder. You have to anchor deeper. Start by trusting your baseline. If something felt off, that feeling is data. You can gather more, but do not discard what your senses already told you. Use calm, precise language that pins the moment to the ground. We agreed on Thursday at 3, and I have it in my calendar with the message you sent. Notice how that statement is not defensive. It is concrete. Ask for specifics. What words did I say? When did I say them? Who else heard it? Gaslighters thrive in fog. Questions bring daylight. External memory protects internal memory. Keep simple written records. Brief summaries after meetings. Short follow-ups that start with confirming we decided X. If someone pushes back later, you can point to the anchor without escalating. When they move the goalposts, name the movement. Last week you said the requirement was A. Today you're saying it was B. Help me understand the change. Naming the shift makes the trick visible, and the trick loses power when seen. Maintain your tempo. Gaslighting tries to rush you into an apology or a concession before you can think. Slow the interaction. I'm not comfortable with this conversation right now. I'll revisit it tomorrow. That pause ends the forced march. Bring a neutral third party when stakes are high. Can we loop Sarah into this? A witness resets the balance because the story can no longer be rewritten in private. When someone insists that the contradiction is your fault, invert the burden of proof. You're claiming I approved that change. Please share where I did so. If that statement makes them angered or evasive, you've learned something crucial about their motives. If they genuinely misremembered, they will seek clarity, not control. Boundaries are the final line. When the pattern repeats, say what you will and will not engage with. I will not continue a conversation where my memory is constantly dismissed. I will discuss facts that can be checked, then keep that promise. Gaslighters bank on you breaking yours. Steady follow-through is your shield. Here is the quiet truth. You are not fragile for feeling confused around a practiced manipulator. They built the maze and keep moving the walls. The way out is not to run faster inside it. It is to stop, mark the walls, and refuse to step where the floor shifts. Your memory is a home. Treat it with the respect that ruthless people hope you will abandon. When you hold your ground, the trick stops working, and those who relied on it to climb will find themselves exposed on very thin air. The free coffee comes with a bill you cannot see. It shows up later when the smile turns into a favor request and your stomach tightens because saying no suddenly feels rude. That invisible bill is what I call favor debt, and some people hand it out like candy because they know you will pay. Here is how it starts. Someone makes a small, bright gesture. They jump in to fix a document, introduce you to a helpful contact, or save you a seat in a crowded room. It is quick, it is easy, and it seems harmless. You say thank you and move on. Then, like a bookmark tucked into your day, they return. Hey, could you help me with something tiny? It will only take a minute. And because they helped you, you feel a tug. That tug is the norm of reciprocity, a powerful human reflex that says, I give back what I receive. On its best day, reciprocity keeps communities generous. On its worst, it gets weaponized. People who play the favor debt trick understand timing. The initial favor is deliberately low lift. Small favors fly under your radar because they do not trigger the same skepticism a grand gesture would. No one suspects a strategy when the cost to you is zero, but the real play is not the favor. It is the story that blossoms in your mind. They were there for me, so I should be there for them. The ask that follows may be small at first, then a little bigger the next time, always just within the bounds of what a good person would say yes to. The pressure does not feel external. It feels internal, like your own voice saying, do the right thing. There are tells to look for. The favor arrives unsolicited and oddly specific, like they are solving a problem you did not have. The kindness gets mentioned again later in a way that glints, a casual reminder of their effort. When you hesitate at the ask, the warmth cools, and you might hear a gentle nudge. After all I did, I thought you would understand. If you catch a flash of guilt, more than gratitude when they resurface, pay attention. Genuine kindness does not invoice you. The trap works because it trades on identity. Most people want to be fair, helpful and kind. Saying no after accepting help can feel like rejecting those values. But here is the reframe. Fairness does not mean servitude. You can be grateful and still be free. You can appreciate the past and still make a clear decision about the present. If you sense favour debt, pause the autopilot. Separate the favour from the ask in your mind. You can literally say, "Thank you again for what you did. I am grateful for it. Now, about this request, I need to consider my bandwidth and priorities." Decouple the two moments. Guilt tries to glue them together. You carefully peel them apart. If the person pushes, do not get pulled into arguing about their past effort. Hold your boundary on the merits of the current request. "I cannot take this on right now." That sentence stands on its own legs. You can also repay in ways that do not entangle you. Offer sincere thanks, a small gesture in return, or simply carry the goodwill forward to someone else. Reciprocity is not a contract, it is a compass. You choose the direction. If the favour was truly given in kindness, your thanks will be enough. If it was a setup, your boundary will expose it. There is a version of this dynamic that is healthy. Healthy reciprocity is transparent. It sounds like, "I am happy to help with this," and if down the line you need a hand on something specific, feel free to ask, and I will let you know if I can. Honest, respectful, no strings hidden. The difference is daylight. Manipulation hides the price and punishes you for noticing it. Integrity names the price and respects your answer. If you are tempted to use the favour debt trick on others, check your motive. Ask yourself whether you would still offer the favour if it could never be repaid. If the answer is no, be honest about that and make a clear request instead. People appreciate clarity far more than calculated kindness. In the long run, your reputation for straightforwardness will take you further than a pocketful of invisible bills. You do not owe anyone your compliance for accepting a kindness. You owe them your thanks, your honesty, and your autonomy. The next time a small favour lands in your lap and a bigger ask follows, breathe, acknowledge the good, evaluate the request, respond without guilt. Let reciprocity be a bridge, not a leash. Hear that faint pop when a promise disappears. That is the sound of selective memory, the quiet trick where someone forgets just enough to slide out of an obligation without looking like the bad guy. It shows up in meetings, over messages, and in casual conversations. One day, they are eager and committed. The next day, they are puzzled and blank, insisting they do not remember agreeing to anything. Convenient amnesia, perfectly timed. Here is how it works. They keep things vague when the commitment costs them time, status, or effort. They nod but avoid specifics. They overemphasize certain parts of a conversation while blurring others. Later, if you bring up the promise, they tilt their head and say, "I do not recall that," or "I thought we said something different." It creates just enough friction to make you drop it, or enough doubt that you start second-guessing your own memory. You feel rude for pressing, and they get a pass. Multiply that pattern, and they inch ahead while you quietly carry more weight. You will see it when a co-worker swears they never agreed to take the client call, even though you both celebrated how it would showcase their skills. You will see it when a manager claims the timeline was only a rough idea, not a deadline, after you stayed late to hit it. You will see it when a friend insists the plan was always flexible, right after you organised everything. It is not always calculated malice. Sometimes it is a practiced habit of escaping discomfort. But either way, the effect is the same. They keep the benefits, you keep the bill. So how do you disarm it without starting a war? Front-load clarity. When a commitment is made, slow the moment down and say, "Let us put this in simple words so we are on the same page." Then speak the agreement like a headline. You will do this by this time, and I will do that. After they agree, close the loop with a calm recap. I am going to write that down and send a quick note so we both have it. That note is your memory insurance. It is not about mistrust. It is about making the future easy. When selective memory appears, do not lunge at it. Use the calm correction. Start with generosity. I might be misremembering, so I checked my notes. Then present the agreement clearly and without edge. Here is what we said. Here is when we said it. Follow with a simple ask. What is the best way for us to keep this on track? This 3-step rhythm saves face while keeping the commitment alive. If they still dodge, bring in a shared source of truth. Suggest adding the agreement to the project board, the calendar, or the agenda. If it matters, it deserves a place where memory is not optional. Listen for red flags. They remember tiny details when it helps them, but forget the big ones when it costs them. They ask for flexibility only when the task lands on their plate. They frequently use phrases like, I assumed, I thought we were still discussing, or I never saw that message. A single instance is human. A pattern is strategy. When you notice it repeat, adjust your exposure. Do not leave critical deliverables hanging on someone who treats recall as a bargaining chip. Involve others, split responsibilities, and keep receipts of every decision. Use language that locks in accountability without heat. Try to be crystal clear. You are owning this piece, correct? Try. I am adding a quick summary so we have the same reference point. Try. If something changes, please update the note so we can track the new plan. And when the trick is played again, respond with steady boundaries. I understand you do not recall it that way. Here is our written agreement. How do you want to proceed to keep us aligned? Make the refusal to remember a dead end, not a shortcut. Also, watch your own memory. Never promise in the haze of enthusiasm. Say, let me confirm after I check my schedule. Speak commitments in plain words, then echo them in writing. The same guardrails that protect you from others will protect you from over-promising yourself. Selective memory thrives in grey areas. Your job is to turn grey into daylight. Say it out loud. Write it down. Read it back. Invite a yes, then repeat it and get a second yes. Keep the record simple and visible. When clarity becomes your habit, their forgetfulness stops being useful. And when the trick no longer pays, it quietly disappears, just like that little pop at the start. You cross the finish line and someone quietly picks it up and walks a few steps farther. You blink, confused. They smile and say, almost there, just add this one more thing. That's the moving goalpost trick. It's when someone keeps changing what counts as success, so you can't claim it. You keep running. They keep walking the finish line, and eventually you feel tired, doubtful, and dependent on their approval. Here's how it shows up. Your manager asks for a concise report. You deliver exactly that. They say, this is good, but I actually need projections too. You add them. Then, let's also include comparisons by region. The criteria morph each time you meet them. Or a teammate says, send me a draft by Wednesday. You do. They respond, oh, I meant a polished deck with speaker notes. Or a partner in a project promises, if you do X, we're good. You do X. They reply, I also expected Y. The standard slides, your win evaporates, and they keep the upper hand. Psychologically, shifting standards are about control. If the goal is unclear, they get to decide when you're done. Unpredictable goals drain motivation and safety. Consistent criteria build trust and cooperation. When people feel fairness and autonomy, they engage. When those are taken away, they pull back, shut down, or chase approval just to get a sense of certainty. So what do? First, Pause before sprinting. Say, before I dive in, can we define what a win looks like? If I deliver A, B, and C by Friday, is that complete? Then capture their yes in writing, even if it's just a quick message recap. Great, we agreed A, B, and C equals done. That's your anchored finish line. It's not aggressive, it's clarity. Second, use acceptance gates. After I send the first version, we'll confirm it meets the goal before I invest more time. This splits the race into two smaller races. If they move the post after the first gate, you can calmly reset. We agreed the first version would be considered complete if it had A and B. It does. If you want to expand the scope, let's adjust the deadline or resources. Notice the tone. You're naming the agreement, acknowledging the change, and tying it to logistics. It keeps you out of emotional ping-pong. Third, name the pattern without labeling the person. It feels like the target is shifting. Can we restate the criteria and lock it in? Naming the move, not the character, preserves dignity and lowers defensiveness while you reset the standard. If they deny it, mirror once and loop back to specifics. I hear you want quality. What exactly makes this a yes? Let's list it. You turn a moving idea into concrete checkboxes. Fourth, trade, don't chase. If they introduce new requirements, you introduce trade-offs. Happy to add regional comparisons. That means either a later delivery or dropping the projections. Which do you prefer? This forces a choice and turns drifting expectations into decisions. Fifth, keep receipts and make wins visible. When you hit what was agreed, say so. We hit A, B, and C on time. Marking this complete. If there's a new phase, let's scope it. You are subtly teaching them that completion exists and it counts. If the goalpost keeps walking, escalate or exit. Chronic shifting is not ambition. It's a control habit. You can set a boundary. I need stable criteria to do my best work. If the criteria change midstream, we'll renegotiate timeline. If that's not possible, I'll step back from this piece. You're not punishing. You're protecting your energy and your standards. A quick example of this in action. A client kept asking for tiny tweaks after approving the brief. I said, let's freeze the brief now. Everything listed is in scope. Anything new becomes phase 2. They pushed once more. I replied, we can absolutely add that in phase 2. Do you want to move this into phase 2 or keep phase 1 as approved and finish today? We finished that day. Here's the reframe. It's not your job to run forever. It's your job to agree on a finish line, cross it, and claim the win. Clarity is not rude. Boundaries are not petty. They are the way you turn a moving finish line back into a real one. And the moment you stop chasing and start anchoring, the trick loses its power. They smile, shrug, and say, I just got lucky, while quietly arranging the board 3 moves ahead. That is the fake humility trick. It looks like modesty. It sounds like modesty, but it is camouflage. The goal is not to be liked. The goal is to be underestimated, because low expectations are a free head start. Here is how it plays out. Someone downplays their title, mumbles about being new, and asks a string of innocent questions that make you do the talking. You relax, share context, reveal pressure points, and even offer advice they can claim later. When praise lands, they swat it away with a soft laugh. Oh, it was a team effort. Then, on the next call, they present a solution that just happens to integrate everything you revealed. They look humble, they walk away with leverage. Fake humility is not shyness. It is selective invisibility. It shows up in language like, I might be totally wrong here, but it wears sweaters instead of suits. It arrives early and sits at the edge of the table. It volunteers to be the note-taker, then quietly shapes the plan by choosing which words go on the page. It treats the spotlight like a hot stove, yet somehow controls the dimmer switch in the room. Why it works is simple. People lower their guard around soft edges. If you seem harmless, you get information. With information, you make better moves. With better moves, you look lucky. The loop reinforces itself. And while others are busy announcing their brilliance, the fake humble operator is building alliances, collecting receipts, and letting outcomes do the talking. How do you spot it without turning paranoid? Stop listening to disclaimers and start watching decisions. Do their actions consistently put them closer to scarce resources, better mentors, or more visibility, even as their words play small? Do they decline credit publicly, then negotiate privately? Do they avoid owning outcomes in the moment, yet always seem to be present when wins are counted? If yes, you are not dealing with a saint. You are dealing with strategy wrapped in softness. Protect yourself by raising the floor of clarity. When someone says, "I just helped a little," ask, which part exactly? When they volunteer for a supporting role, define what success looks like in detail and who signs off. Share information on a need basis, not an ego basis. If you feel flattered by their deference, slow down. Flattery is the oldest crowbar. Invite them to co-own the risk they are eager to co-own the credit for. Real humility accepts responsibility. Fake humility dodges it. Now a twist. You can use the principle without becoming manipulative. Quiet confidence is not the same as false modesty. You do not need to broadcast every win to be ambitious. Let your results speak, but do not pretend you did not speak. Give others praise loudly, describe your role factually, and document outcomes so there is no confusion later. Ask curious questions to learn, not to bait. Dress and act with ease, not as a calculated costume. The art is to lower noise, not to lower the truth. There is also a way to turn the trick against itself. When someone keeps downplaying their capacity, give them clear public responsibility aligned with their suggestions. The moment the room sees the gap between the soft tone and the sharp ambitions, the camouflage phrase, they will either step up and drop the act or step back and lose momentum. Either way, the fog lifts. Remember, modesty is a virtue. Fake humility is a tactic. One builds trust by anchoring ego to reality. The other collects trust like a currency and spends it later. Do not let a gentle smile blind you to firm hands. Reward substance. Track patterns. Be warm, be fair, and keep your eyes open. The people who whisper, "I might be wrong," are sometimes the ones counting on you not to check. A quiet way to discover who stands with you is to let silence tug at the threads and watch who reaches for scissors. That's the hidden appeal of the loyalty test trick. You do not ask, you engineer. You create a crunch, slip a secret, stage a conflict that looks like it arrived on its own, then step back to see who cracks. It feels efficient. It feels surgical. It can also be deeply misleading. Here is what this move looks like. You announce an impossible deadline to your team, then pull one person aside and whisper that the date is flexible. You watch whether they tell the group the truth or protect your favour. Or you share a false piece of gossip with 3 friends, each with a different detail. Then you wait to see which detail leaks back to you. Or you act like you forgot your wallet and notice who jumps in to pay, who freezes, who looks away. The design is always the same. Introduce pressure, make the choices lopsided, and let people reveal themselves. Psychologically, this works on a simple force: stress narrows attention. When someone feels rushed, watched, or cornered, the brain reaches for shortcuts and habits. You are not just measuring loyalty, you are measuring how they handle threat. In that fog, good people can stumble, loud people can look brave, and clever cowards can seem loyal by playing to the test they guessed you set. That is why the loyalty test trick yields data, but not always truth. It collects reactions to your trap, not the whole of their character. Let's take a close example. A manager wants to know who is ride or die. She privately assigns two people conflicting tasks that cannot both be finished by morning. One is flashy and visible, one is boring but essential. If you pick flashy, you look like a star and leave a teammate exposed. If you pick boring, the team survives but your name is nowhere. The manager watches and writes mental notes. Who is loyal? It depends on what she values, and right now, what she values is the drama of a trap. There is a cleaner way to read people. Name the real stakes. Remove the gotcha. Give clear expectations and fair boundaries. Then elevate the pressure gradually and openly. Loyalty shows up as consistency, not a single moment under a stage light. When you do test for behaviours that build the whole, not fealty to you. Who communicates early when they are underwater? Who protects the absent? Who tells you a hard truth without theatrics? Who fixes small things without credit? Not flashy, but faithful. If you suspect someone is running the loyalty test trick on you, do not flail inside their frame. Slow down. Call out the frame gently. Say, this feels like a false choice. Can we make the goal explicit? Ask for the principle, not the performance. When you have to pick, choose what keeps trust intact tomorrow, not what keeps you safe tonight. Protect the absent. Protect the process. Protect the truth. The people worth keeping notice that. There is a darker reason some love loyalty traps. They are shortcuts to power. If you can make people feel scared, you can make them signal allegiance. But allegiance under fear is brittle. It obeys until a better offer arrives. Real loyalty is quieter. It is earned by fairness, clarity, and shared strain. It grows when you reward the behaviour you say you value, not the flattery you secretly want. That shift changes how you see the world and how you lead inside it. So yes, the loyalty test trick can smoke out a snake now and then. It can also break trust you needed and mislabel the people you should have kept close. Trade traps for standards. Trade suspicion for transparency. Build the kind of pressure that strengthens people instead of splitting them. That is how you disarm the loyalty test trick. Picture walking into a room where every smile stops 1 inch short of you. Conversation pauses like someone pressed a mute button. You feel present, but somehow missing. That's not bad luck. That's a play. The social exile trick is the silent treatment upgraded into a group sport designed to shrink your voice until you stop using it. Here's how it usually looks. Meetings you used to be in move to a new time you never hear about. A decision gets made in a hallway chat, then relabeled as a quick consensus without you. Group threads branch into a private channel that excludes you. So your first notice of a plan is when someone says, "We already discussed that." People practice plausible deniability. "Oh, must have been an oversight. Thought you were copied. We assumed you were busy." The goal is bigger than hurt feelings. It is to isolate you, control the narrative, then present your absence as proof you're not essential. Why does anyone use it? Because it is efficient, deniable, and contagious. If the gatekeeper can convince others that your input is inconvenient, they can move faster without having to win a fair debate. If they get the group to mirror their silence, you start to look like the odd one out. Status becomes a circle, and they redraw it without you. The first mistake is chasing. When you beg to be included, you confirm the story that you need their permission to matter. The second mistake is exploding. Anger is the trailer they want to show to everyone else. See? Disruptive, overly emotional, not a team player. The third mistake is disappearing. Silence cements the exile. So what do? Start by naming the pattern to yourself without assigning a villain. This keeps your head clear. Then shift your posture from seeking entry to creating gravity. Make it easy for people to orbit you again. Reclaim visibility by becoming the host of value. Share short, useful updates that make other people's work easier. Send a crisp summary after a meeting you did attend, capturing decisions, owners, and timelines. Keep it generous and neutral. Add small insights that save others time. When someone forwards your summary around, you're back in the bloodstream. Make one-on-one your playground. The crowd is where Exile works. Pairs are where it breaks. Invite quiet influencers for coffee, a screen share, a quick walk. Say, I'd love your read on something. Ask for advice and listen. Strong ties are built in private, and they give you advocates who can't be swayed by group mood. Address the architect without accusation. In private, use calm, specific language. I might be off, but I'm noticing I'm not in a few conversations that affect my work. What would make collaboration smoother? You are not seeking an apology. You are forcing a decision. A reasonable person will adjust. A political person will reveal themselves. Either outcome helps you plan. Control your receipts, not their behavior. When a decision happens without you, don't protest the exclusion. Ask for clarity. For completeness, can someone confirm the final scope and owner? I'll align my part accordingly. Then do excellent work on what you control. Competence is a quiet microphone. Host the room when you can. Propose a small, regular touchpoint that solves a real problem. Keep it short, predictable, and valuable. People attend what helps them. If the circle shrank around you, draw a new one by being useful to their goals. Mind your tone. Humour and warmth disarm the trick. Start a meeting with a genuine win from someone else. Give credit loudly and specifically. The person who distributes status becomes hard to exile. They need your bridges even if they don't like you. Watch for tells, sudden calendar glitches, vague language like we, already covered. Everyone agrees. Long pauses after you speak, followed by a rapid change of subject. Inside jokes that announce hierarchy. None of these individually prove malice. Together they sketch intent. You do not need to be a detective. You need to adapt your game. If the freeze escalates into active sabotage, raise the light, not the heat. Document decisions in clear, boring language. Copy only those who need to know. Ask clarifying questions in writing. To avoid overlap, can you confirm who is driving the vendor call Wednesday and the deliverable due Friday? This makes power plays expensive because they must contradict the record or cooperate. Protect your energy. Exile feeds on your attention. Set a time limit for how much room it gets in your mind each day. Then return to building. Move your body. Sleep. Laugh with someone who remembers who you are. Craft is a shield. So is joy. Consider the long game. Sometimes you will outlast the season and inherit the room because you stayed steady. Sometimes the room is the problem. If the trick is baked into the culture, your best move is not to solve it, but to graduate from it. Take your network, your receipts, and your self-respect, and go where rooms are bigger than cliques. One more thing, resist using the trick yourself. It feels powerful to ice someone out. It also shrinks you. You get addicted to control and forget how to persuade. Influence that relies on exile is fragile. Influence that invites, convinces, and credits others is hard to kill. When the circle closes, do not pound on the door. Build another circle. When your name goes missing, write it into the story by doing work that people cannot ignore. When the room falls silent, speak in ways that make their jobs easier. The social exile trick is real. It is also beatable, not by asking to belong, but by becoming the person groups are lucky to include. You can almost hear the air get heavier when someone decides their silence should weigh more than your words. Conversations don't end, they evaporate. Your messages sit unread. Your calls drift to nowhere, and a quiet wall rises up that tells you to doubt yourself. That wall has a name. It is the silent treatment, and it is not about calm, it is about control. Here is how it sneaks in. There is tension, a disagreement, or you set a boundary. Instead of talking it through, the other person withholds contact. They do not say they need a breather. They do not ask for time. They simply disappear inside their own quiet. The silence is not a pause to cool off. It is a pressure tactic designed to make you chase. You begin replaying every line you said. You wonder what they are thinking. You draft explanations, apologies, bargains. Your mind starts doing the work they want done. You pivot from the original issue to how to win their attention back. The brilliance of this trick is that it flips the script. You were hurt or concerned, and now you are the one scrambling. You start to fear the loss of connection more than you value your own point. That fear is the leverage. Silence jabs at a basic human need to be seen and heard. And because there is no clear end, the uncertainty keeps you hooked. They have engineered a one-sided conversation where your imagination fills in all the blanks. There is a difference between a healthy timeout and the silent treatment. A healthy timeout is spoken out loud. It sounds like this: I am overwhelmed. I need a break. Let's talk after dinner. It sets a time to return, and it is not used to punish. The silent treatment hides its intent. There is no clarity, just an invisible countdown you are supposed to decode. A healthy pause respects both people. The silent treatment tries to make one person small. You will know it by its patterns. After conflict, they become unreachable to you, but chatty with others. They post jokes online while ignoring your texts. They talk through a third person and pretend it is normal. They only thaw when you have bent enough to fit what they want. The quiet is not for healing. It is for training. So what do you do when someone reaches for that mute button on your sanity? First, you stop feeding the machine. Chasing, pleading, and sending long explanations reward the tactic. Keep your dignity and your words. So one calm message is enough. I am available to talk when you are ready to have a respectful conversation. Second, keep living. Make dinner. Take the walk. Do the work. You teach people how to treat you by what you tolerate and by how you continue your day. If you share a home, be civil, not performative. Greet them. Take care of your tasks. Do not slam cabinets or play their game in reverse. If you are at work, keep it professional and put things in writing. A simple note works. I am following up on the issue. Let me know a time that works to discuss. If the pattern continues, address it directly with calm clarity. When you go silent after problems, it blocks progress and erodes trust. I need us to address issues in a timely way. Here is the line that breaks the spell. Name it, not with anger, with accuracy. This feels like the silent treatment. If you need space, say so, and we can set a time to reconnect. If not, I am going to move forward and will be open to a conversation when you are ready. Naming the behavior pulls it out of the shadows. It tells the other person you will not dance around their silence. Prepare for the moment they finally speak. Often, they return when they sense your attention shifting back to your life. They may come back with half answers, jokes, or blame. Hold steady, bring it back to the original issue and the pattern of withdrawal. Ask for a better way to handle tension next time. All you need is one agreed step, like saying, "I need a breather," and choosing a time to talk. If they sneer at that, they are telling you who they are. If the silent treatment is how they always get their way, you face a choice. You cannot fix what they refuse to own. You can adjust your boundaries. You can refuse to negotiate in the fog. You can decide what you will do if it happens again. That might mean taking longer breaks yourself. It might mean looping in a mediator at work. In a relationship, it might mean counseling, or if nothing changes, creating distance that protects your peace. Remember, silence is not always cruelty. Sometimes people freeze because they are afraid. Sometimes they grew up in homes where conflict meant danger and quiet felt like safety. Compassion matters, but compassion does not mean surrendering your voice. You can be gentle and firm. You can say, "I care about you, and I will not accept being punished with silence." Both can be true. The silent treatment trick looks powerful. It is not. It is a loud confession of emotional immaturity, dressed in quiet. The power it seems to have runs on your energy, your fear, your frantic explaining. When you stop supplying those, the trick stalls. Your job is not to pry words out of a closed mouth. Your job is to keep your own voice, your own schedule, and your own self-respect intact. The next time the room goes quiet in that heavy way, breathe. Say what is true once, then let your actions say the rest. People who want real connection will meet you with words. People who want control will miss the sound of your footsteps walking past the mute button. There is a move so quiet it sounds like help. Someone slides between two people and whispers different truths to each. They praise you to your face, they sigh about you to someone else, and then they translate both sides back and forth until the only voice that matters is theirs. That is the triangulation trick. It is not about winning an argument. It is about owning the channel. Here is how it works. The operator spots two people who either rely on each other, disagree with each other, or simply have not had time to build trust. They present themselves as the friendly bridge. They carry messages. They pass along concerns. They offer to smooth the edges. While doing this, they salt each exchange with tiny edits. A compliment loses its tone. A joke becomes a jab. A request turns into a demand. Soon, you and the other person are reacting to distorted versions of each other, and the operator is right in the middle, the only one who seems to understand both sides. Triangulation rewards the operator with leverage. If the two of you connect directly, they fade into the background. If you are split apart, you need them. They become the keeper of context, the broker of peace, the source of what they really meant. Notice the payoff structure. They do not need to be right. They need to be required. Once they are required, they steer who gets resources, who hears praise, and who looks like the problem. A manager can do this with two team leads. A friend can do it between two people who used to be close. A family member can do it between siblings. The setting changes, the pattern does not. The operator's toolkit is simple. They flatter both sides, but never in the same room. They amplify minor frustrations and cut out the redeeming parts. They create urgency, so you cannot slow down and verify. They nudge you to speak through them because it will be easier. They push for secrecy by calling it discretion. If you try to compare notes, they warn that the other person will explode or that you will look disloyal. All of this keeps the triangle intact. There are tells to watch for. You hear surprisingly different summaries of the same conversation depending on who repeats it. Praise from the operator feels sweet, but isolating. Like a gift that increases your debt, there is always a reason not to talk directly. You feel oddly grateful to someone who never seems to be present when credit is handed out and always materializes when conflict appears. You notice that every path goes through the same person, no matter how simple the topic. If you sense this, do not fight the other corner of the triangle. Collapse the shape. Bring everyone into the same conversation. You do not need drama. You need daylight. Say, let's get the three of us together on a call. Or let's write this in a shared thread so we all have the same notes. Triangulation starves in public air. The operator will resist. They may say the timing is bad, or one of you cannot handle it, or it is quicker if they just relay. Stay calm and repeat the move toward togetherness. If they insist on being the messenger, thank them and still loop the other person in. Consistency beats confrontation. When you do speak with the other person directly, assume a gap, not bad intent. The triangle feeds on misread tone and missing context. Start with simple, neutral language. I heard X and wanted to check if that matches what you said. Here is what I actually meant. I would rather talk to you than about you. You are not accusing. You are repairing the channel. If emotions run hot, name the shared goal before the stuck points. We both want this project to land well. We both want our weekends back. Then address the facts. Keep the operator out of the middle while you do. Preventive habits matter even more. Default to shared spaces for decisions and timelines. Put agreements in writing where all parties can see them. Praise and feedback should travel directly, not through a third party. When someone tries to hand you a sealed message about someone else, decline the package with kindness. Say, I prefer to hear that from them, or let's loop them in right now. It will feel awkward the first time. It will save you days of cleanup later. There is also an inner move. Triangulation works when we crave being the favourite or fear being the fool. The operator offers special status to one and protection to the other. Step off that stage. You do not need to be the chosen one. You do not need a bodyguard. You need clarity. Trade a little comfort now for a lot of freedom later. Decide that you will forgo secret praise and second-hand outrage in exchange for open lines and durable trust. That choice makes you very hard to manage in the wrong way. If you are the one tempted to triangulate, pause. The short-term control never lasts. You will spend more energy maintaining the illusion than you would building real alliances. Be the person who connects people without editing them. Share credit in front of the room. Deliver tough news directly and kindly. When two people disagree, host the conversation in the open and then step out so they can strengthen their bond. Influence that survives comes from being useful, not from being the only corridor. The triangulation trick thrives in silence, speed, and separation. Your counter is simple and repeatable. Slow the exchange. Speak together. Put sunlight on the message. When in doubt, ask, would this still make sense if all of us were here? If the answer is no, change the setup until it is yes. Control built on division feels powerful for a moment. Control built on clarity makes you and everyone around you stronger for a long time. They will polish your name until it turns into a handle they can pull whenever they want. That is the reputation trap. It does not start with a demand. It starts with a compliment so shiny, you almost see your reflection in it. You are so reliable. You always come through. Everyone respects you. Then the hook slides in, fast, quiet, and supposedly harmless. That is why I told them you are our person for this. You are not being asked, you are being placed. The reputation trap uses your own goodness like a lever. Your identity as dependable, kind, or fair becomes the tool that moves you where someone else wants you to go. In offices, it sounds like you are the only one I trust with this. At home, it is you always know what to do. In friendships, it is if you say no, people will be disappointed. None of these lines talk about workload, fairness, or consent. They talk about you. They make the choice about your character instead of about the task. Here is how the trap tightens. First, they praise you in public, because social eyes make your reputation feel fragile. Then they add urgency, because time pressure blurs your boundaries. Next, they present a false binary, because if you do not do it, everything will fall apart. Finally, they pretend the decision is already made, because they told the client you would handle it. When someone spends your name to buy a promise, without asking you, they are banking on your fear of looking inconsistent or unhelpful. That fear is the prison guard of the reputation trap. You can feel it physically, a tightness in your chest, an urge to fix everything, a voice that says, do not let them down. Notice that voice. It is not your conscience. It is the conditioning that confuses pleasing others with being a good person. Reliability does not require self-betrayal. Integrity does not require surrender. Break the frame before you answer the request. You do not need to defend your character. You only need to decide. Try this spine-straight sentence. Thanks for the confidence. I am not available for that. You will be tempted to add a novel's worth of explanations. Do not. Clarity protects better than apology. If they push with the "you are the only one" line, come back with this. Being the right person does not make this the right time. If they say, I already promised for you, say this. Please do not make commitments in my name. I am not accepting this. If they hint at disappointment, use this. My reputation matters, which is why I tell the truth. The answer is no. Turn the spotlight from your identity to the plan. Ask real questions that force responsibility back where it belongs. What is the actual deadline? And what can be removed from my plate if I take this? Who else is capable? And how will you equip them? What are the options that do not involve me? The trap thrives on pretending your involvement is the only path. Reality tends to disagree once alternatives are named out loud. If you want a simple structure, lead with appreciation, state a boundary, offer a path forward that does not cost you. I appreciate your trust. I am not taking this on. You might ask Jordan, or we can push the timeline. If the person replies with some version of, this is not like you, answer with you are right. It is not like me to agree to a promise I did not make. That preserves the part of your reputation that truly matters, the part tied to honesty. Practice preemptive armor. Share your capacity before the scramble. This month, I am at capacity for extra projects. If you have a request, it needs lead time. Keep a personal policy you can point to. I do not accept last-minute tasks unless we drop something else. That is not cruelty. That is math. Put your policy in writing so you do not have to invent courage from scratch every time. Watch out for the rescue setup, where someone frames a mess as a test of your character. They might say, I thought you cared. Try this. I do care. Caring includes setting limits, so my yes still means yes. If caring is the currency they bring, make sure consent is the price. Caring without consent is exploitation dressed as a virtue. Remember that gossip is often the silent threat behind the trap. The fear is they will say, "You are difficult." Let them say it. Difficult is what people call you when easy no longer works on you. Your reputation will survive truth better than it survives resentment. If someone ties your goodness to obedience, their approval is not worth keeping. You can even flip the trick back into a mirror. Say this gently. It sounds like you are using my reputation to pressure me. I am not comfortable with that. Is this a request I am free to decline? Bringing the hidden rule into daylight breaks its power. Most manipulators prefer the shadows. You do not need a hard heart to escape the reputation trap. You need a steady one. A steady heart can hold both truths at once. You are reliable, and you are not responsible for every gap. You are kind, and you do not owe your time to people who spend your name without asking. You are fair, and fairness includes you. When you feel that familiar tug, pause, name the frame to yourself. This is about identity, not the task. Return the choice to its proper place. Decide with your calendar, your energy and your values, not with fear of being misunderstood. Then speak in short, calm sentences. Thanks for thinking of me. I am not available. Here are some alternatives. The handle on your good name belongs to you. A paper cup of coffee can buy a meeting, and a sticky note can buy loyalty. You have seen it. Someone shows up with something small and immediately feels bigger. Suddenly they are warm, generous, high status, trustworthy. That is the token gesture trick, a tiny act that is cheap to give but expensive in perception. Imagine a manager who never fights for your raise but remembers your birthday with a handwritten card. The card costs pocket change and a minute, but now they are the caring leader. Or think about the colleague who brings pastries the day before they drop a weekend workload on you. Powdered sugar, then pressure. The symbol came first, the ask came second, and your guard slipped because the token felt like proof. Why does this work so well? Humans are fast storytellers. We fill in blanks. A small symbol suggests a bigger story. A bouquet on a desk suggests thoughtfulness. A quick apology suggests accountability. A small donation suggests generosity. Our brains stretch the gesture until it covers every corner of the person. The token becomes a halo, and the halo does the heavy lifting. Then there is reciprocity. We hate uneven scales. If someone gives even a tiny thing, we itch to balance it. That itch is exactly where the trick bites. They give a token. You give time, access, a vote, a pass. The trade is wildly uneven, but it feels fair because you are settling a debt your brain just invented. You can watch this trick everywhere. A vendor offers a small discount and free stickers before sliding in a long contract. A politician rolls up their sleeves and ladles soup for photographs, then asks for your support on a complicated bill you will not read. An executive does a floor walk, shakes hands, remembers 2 names, and suddenly the layoffs feel more humane. A new hire brings snacks on day 1, and by day 3 is shielded from critique because nobody wants to be the person who attacks the donut person. There is also the status signal. People read signals more than facts. A ribbon cutting says progress. A donation says values. An office visit says attention. If the signal is visible, shareable, and easy to repeat, it can drown out the harder truth. This is how a tiny move inoculates someone against real scrutiny. Here is how you resist. First, split the symbol from the substance. Say thank you for the gesture, then decide based on the facts. The card is kind, but did they fight for the budget? The apology is smooth, but did the behavior change? The discount is nice, but what are the terms? Second, slow down the urge to reciprocate. If you feel pressure to say yes right after a small gift, name the feeling privately. Tell yourself the scales are imaginary. You can be polite without paying the toll. Third, check for pattern and timing. Do gestures appear right before asks, reviews, renewals, or elections? If the kindness spikes when leverage is needed, you are looking at strategy, not character. If you want to use this power, do it cleanly. A token gesture should be a receipt for the real thing, not a substitute. If you cannot back it with action, the glow will sour and people will remember. If you can back it, the token becomes a bridge. A thank you note after you actually went to bat for someone is not manipulation, it is clarity. A quick coffee for a night shift team after you fought to fix scheduling is not theatre, it is respect. Let the small symbol point to a big truth. Does this mean you should never accept a small kindness? No, it means you mark it correctly. Appreciate the sign, verify the signal. You can like the person and still guard the gate. You can enjoy the cookie and still read the contract. You can nod at the ribbon cutting and still ask for the project plan. Notice the more subtle version, the token sacrifice. Someone admits a tiny fault before asking for a big favour. I am terrible with spreadsheets. Could you help me this weekend? The vulnerability softens you, then the request turns sharp. Or the token risk. They share a mild secret to imply trust, then ask for yours. You can meet them with boundaries. I can help on Monday during work hours. I do not share confidences about clients. You give something, but on your terms, not the terms smuggled in under the token. If you mentor others, teach them to earn trust with consistent delivery, then accent it with tokens. A quick voice memo of thanks after a hard sprint. A short summary email that saves someone time. A small favour that aligns with your values and your capacity. These are tokens too, but they point to a reliable pattern. Over time, the pattern outlives any single gesture. One final check you can use in the moment. Ask yourself what would remain if the gesture vanished. No coffee, no card, no apology, no sleeve rolling. Would you still say yes? If the answer is no, then the token was doing all the work. That is your cue to pause. And if the answer is yes, because the facts are strong, then the token was simply a nice touch, not a trap. A paper cup can buy a moment, not a character. A sticky note can buy a smile, not a standard. Keep your eyes on the trade, not the trinket. Give tokens that mirror your substance. Accept tokens without surrendering judgment. And when you feel the halo settling on your shoulders, reach up, lift it off, and weigh the person, the offer, and the cost with both hands open. They nudge a single domino, and somehow the room treats them like they brought down a wall. You know that person. Minimal push. Maximum praise. That is the invisible work trick. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Here is how it plays out. Work is rarely judged by a stopwatch. It is judged by story, by drama, by how hard it seems. The trick is to make the path look foggy, so everyone assumes the hike was brutal. You do a small thing, but you frame it as a journey. You create moments. You curate confusion. Then you step out of the mist with a ta-da. They start by inflating the problem. Not by lying, but by seasoning it with uncertainty. Instead of saying they need to rename a database column, they talk about stability, cross-team dependencies, and legacy risk. Instead of asking a vendor for a small price break, they frame it as a multi-layer negotiation with moving parts. Ambiguity is the stage light. Under that glow, A tiny task casts a giant shadow. Then they manufacture checkpoints. A simple fix becomes phases: discovery, alignment, draft, review, final. Each phase has an update, each update has a slide, and each slide invites applause. The effort does not grow, but the number of touch points does, and attention is the currency that makes work look heavy. They set the tempo to their advantage. They do the small thing quickly, but hold the reveal until a meeting with the right audience. The timing is surgical. They let a little silence build. People start to feel the weight of the unknown. Then they deliver a neat resolution. Relief turns into credit, and credit turns into perceived effort. They also speak the dialect of difficulty. Jargon, acronyms, and abstract nouns make simple steps sound like a labyrinth. It is not deception if the words are technically accurate, but opacity becomes a cloak. The less others can visualize the steps, the more they fill in the blanks with imagined toil. Artifacts are multiplied. A short email summary, a polished diagram, a crisp checklist, a ticket that says blocked, then unblocked. Each artifact is a breadcrumb that hints at a long walk, even if the trail loops around the block. People trust paper trails. The trick is to produce a pile of paper for a pinch of work. They invite validation they can quote. A quick ping to a senior colleague. Does this approach make sense given the constraints? That colleague nods, mentions the constraints, and now the story includes borrowed gravitas. When the outcome lands, the script reads, "We navigated the constraints," even if the constraints were a paper tiger. They bundle small tasks under a bold banner. Instead of adding 3 tiny features, they announce a reliability initiative with a theme, a name, and a colour on the roadmap. Names make things feel big. Names allow status reports. Status reports invite recognition. Calendar theatre helps. Blocks of focus time appear, not because the work needs days of effort, but because the calendar is public and calendars radiate seriousness. People respect busy schedules. The trick converts a few blocks into an aura of non-stop grind. 2 more moves seal it. They own first and last narrative. First, by setting expectations in broad strokes. Last, by closing the loop with a tidy before and after. A dash of contrast goes a long way. Before, messy, risky, unclear. After, crisp, safe, simple. If no one saw the middle, the mind inflates the middle. Why does it work? Because humans are wired to equate uncertainty with difficulty, to mistake artifacts for effort, and to reward those who relieve tension. We remember stories, not git diffs. We clap for the person who turns anxiety into clarity, even if the actual labour lived inside a single afternoon. Should you use it? That depends on your stomach for theatre. There is a clean way and a dirty way. The dirty way is smoke, hide, pad, and posture. The clean way is framing. Do real work, then package it so its value is obvious. Clear context is not manipulation. It is translation. The line is simple. Never claim effort you did not spend, but do make your work legible, memorable, and easy to champion. If you are on the receiving end, build guardrails that slice through the fog. Ask for the smallest concrete unit. What changed, where, and how can we see it? Anchor timelines to milestones with observable outcomes, not phases with dramatic names. Compare before and after with a single screenshot, a single metric, a single sentence. Praise outcomes more than updates. When you do that, the trick loses oxygen. If you are tempted to play the game, play it with integrity. Tell the story, but keep it true. Replace complexity theatre with clarity theatre. Trade jargon for plain speech that still respects the stakes. Share the right artifacts, but tie each to a specific outcome. Choose your reveal moments not to inflate credit, but to collect feedback and build momentum. The invisible work trick will always exist because attention is scarce and perception is elastic. Some will use it to coast, some will use it to communicate. Now you can tell the difference. You can stop being hypnotized by the fog machine. You can decide with eyes open whether to step into that mist or to clear it for everyone else. Someone else's idea just walked out wearing their name tag. You watched it happen. A polite nod, a quick pivot, and suddenly the room believes the loudest voice also did the most work. That slippery moment is the credit inflation trick. And once you can see it, you can stop it from working on you. Here is how it plays out. In group work, most of the effort is hidden. The invisible hours, the messy drafts, the quiet fixes at strange times of night. Credit inflators know that what people remember is not who pushed the boulder, but who told the story of the boulder moving. They position themselves as the narrator. They volunteer to present, to send the recap, to update the boss. They sprinkle phrases like, "under my guidance," and "I drove," and "my team," which sounds generous, but gently places them at the centre. They show up first and last in conversation, so they bookend the memory. They ask questions that hint at their leadership. They speak in complete summaries that make them sound like the architect rather than a passenger. The trick works because meetings are highlight reels, not documentaries. The brain grabs the newest, clearest story. So the person who frames the work frames the credit. If they control the slides, the agenda, the recap, and the subject line of the follow-up, they control the story. Do that often, and you can walk away with a reputation that is much larger than your real contribution. You can spot credit inflation by listening for little shifts in language. We becomes I when praise arrives. Specifics blur when others contributed most. Thanks are delayed or diluted. You will hear soft edits like, "I aligned the team," when they actually attended a single meeting. You will see ownership assigned to the most visible task rather than the hardest one. You might notice they hoard opportunities to present while delegating the quiet grind. They suggest that their part unblocked everything, even when the work was already in motion. Now, how do you defend without becoming petty or combative? You make the work visible before the story hardens. Write short, clear updates during the project that credit by name. Share them with the right people, not as a brag, but as a record of progress. When you speak in a meeting, name contributions out loud. Yes, and Maya built the prototype that made this possible. You anchor the truth with receipts and kindness. After group milestones, send the recap yourself or co-author it with the person leading. If someone else is presenting, ask to add a slide that maps roles to deliverables. It is hard to steal what has already been properly labelled. When someone starts inflating in real time, redirect gently. That's right. And Dev's analysis is what gave us the confidence to choose that direction. It sounds generous, but you are placing the credit where it belongs, in front of witnesses. If they take a victory lap that erases others, ask a simple question that reopens the story. Can we walk through who handled which piece so we capture lessons learned? It invites clarity without a fight. If the pattern continues, talk privately and specifically. I noticed the update last week listed my research under general support. That research drove the recommendation. Can we correct the summary so it reflects who did what? You are not attacking character. You are repairing the record. If it keeps happening, escalate with documentation and a calm tone. Leaders respond better to patterns than to flare-ups. There is also a way to get more credit ethically. Be the person who narrates the process while shining light on others. Offer to present and tell the truth in a way that makes the whole team look sharp. Say "we" and then list names. Curate the recap with precision. Place yourself where you actually contributed, clearly and confidently. When you praise others, it gives you credibility when you name your own role. People trust a fair narrator. If you lead, install guardrails that make theft harder. End meetings with a quick roll call of contributions. Celebrate progress in public channels with names attached to tasks. Rotate who presents. Write norms that say what ownership looks like, so no one can claim everything with clever wording. When the system makes credit clear, inflators have less room to operate. Understand why this matters. Credit is not just applause. It is how opportunities, raises, and trust are assigned. If someone keeps slipping their name on your work, they are not just taking a compliment. They are stepping into chances that should be yours. Protecting your credit is not petty. It is professional hygiene. The credit inflation trick thrives in fuzzy stories. Make the story crisp. Keep your receipts. Speak names. Redirect praise with grace. Lead the narrative without stealing the spotlight. If you do this well, you will not only keep what you have earned, you will be known as the person who lifts the whole room while standing firmly on your own feet. Write your own name tag before someone else does. Picture someone who forgets just enough to make sure the fallout hits you, then smiles like it was an honest mix-up. That is the strategic failure trick. It is failing on purpose so someone else carries the blame, and it is far more common than most people think. It starts small. A colleague offers vague directions, pushes a task your way, and keeps the important step under their control. Then, right when the deadline is tight, that person drops a stitch you cannot see, and the whole thing unravels in your hands. Afterward, they say a soft version of sorry, followed by a strong version of your fault. I assumed you had it, as discussed. Maybe I misunderstood. Here is how the trick works. The person primes the situation by inflating your ownership while keeping theirs ambiguous. They avoid writing things down. They introduce shifting definitions of done. They make timing slippery, promising to send the file or book the room or notify the client, but only after you move first. The critical moment is a small, deniable miss. An attachment is not sent. A name is left off a thread. A dependency is not confirmed. The miss is small enough to look like human error, but placed exactly where it triggers a chain reaction on your side. By the time anyone notices, you appear careless, and they appear unlucky. You can spot red flags. If someone always wants to talk it out instead of confirming in writing, be alert. If they use phrases like, as a reminder for things never written, pay attention. If they keep control of sign-off but hand you all the steps, note the imbalance. If they copy leaders only when something goes wrong, notice the pattern. If handoffs are always last minute and your response windows are magically shorter than theirs, that is not random, that is design. There are simple defenses that do not require drama. Convert air into evidence. When a plan is discussed, send a brief summary with owners, single names per action, and clear deadlines. Ask the other person to confirm their piece in writing. Replace I will get to it with by when. Replace I thought you meant with here is what we agreed. Before starting, define done in plain language. Who is pressing send? Who is booking the room? Who is telling the client? Ask them to restate their steps. If they will not, restate for them and ask for a yes. Use small check-ins. before the big deadline. A tiny early proof often prevents a giant late disaster. If you sense a deliberate misstep incoming, bring daylight. Hey, to make sure we are aligned, I am waiting on your revised file by tomorrow morning. Once I have it, I will publish by end of day. That sentence does three things. It anchors a dependency, puts the timeline in plain view, and names the owner of the next move. If the file never arrives, the miss is now theirs, not yours, and everyone can see it without you accusing anyone. When the blast has already happened, keep your tone calm and your facts crisp. Own what is yours, precisely. Then lay out a simple timeline. What was agreed? What happened? What is next? Offer a fix. Suggest a process change so the same trap cannot be set again. If someone tries to deposit all the blame in your lap, refuse the lump sum and return exact change. I own the missed check on my side. The missing approval sat with you. Next time, let us assign a single owner and confirm sign-off in writing. It is hard to argue with clarity. If you lead a team, make sabotage expensive by design. Assign a single driver for each deliverable. Write down the definition of done before work begins. Use short scheduled checkpoints. Do a quick pre-mortem and ask where a small miss could cause a big failure, then close those gaps with explicit owners. You do not need more pressure. You need more visibility. Most of all, resist the temptation to use this trick yourself, even when it would be easy or satisfying. Strategic failure buys short-term safety at the price of long-term trust. Real power is reliability, not clever blame. Watch for patterns, make the invisible visible, and let your quiet rigor outlast other people's quiet sabotage. The moment someone can no longer make you carry their mess, their trick stops being strategic and starts looking like what it always was, a choice to fail. The fastest way to look essential isn't working longer hours. It's making the path so twisty that only you can lead people through it. That's the controlled chaos trick. You don't create disasters, you create motion. You keep things just unstable enough that everyone else feels a little off balance and you're the only steady hand that seems to know where to step next. Here's how it shows up. A colleague quietly renames files every few days, shifts deadlines by a day or two, changes the meeting link the morning of, and updates the process doc with quick tweaks that break 3 other steps. People try to follow, then get lost. They start pinging the same person for help, and that person is magnanimous about it, showing up at the last minute to unblock everyone. They become the guide, the translator, the only one who can stitch the moving pieces together. It looks like competence. It feels like leadership. It's really dependency by design. For a more vivid picture, imagine a team lead named Maya. The project's goal is simple: deliver a client dashboard. In week 1, she changes the naming conventions to keep things tidy. In week 2, she switches the analytics tool so we can move faster. In week 3, she tells design to prioritize page 3 because it unlocks development. Then in week 4, she calls that a misread and flips priorities again. Every update sounds reasonable in the moment. Every adjustment is framed as a smart optimization, but the net effect is churn. Information lives in half a dozen places. People do work twice. And when the client asks for a progress update, Maya is the only one who can explain the current truth, because she authored the turbulence. After a few cycles, no one makes a move without asking her first. She's indispensable, not because the work is hard, but because the map keeps changing and she holds the compass. Psychologically, this works because uncertainty drains attention. When the ground shifts, people stop thinking about the big picture and focus on not slipping. They follow the person who looks sure-footed. Variable reinforcement plays a role too. When someone rescues you sometimes, but not always, you keep checking in case today is the day they make it easy. Meanwhile, the person controlling the changes enjoys information asymmetry. They know the latest links, the newest rules, the real deadline, and that advantage converts into perceived authority. The trick isn't chaos for chaos's sake. It's chaos calibrated to funnel decisions through one person. If you're tempted to use it, be honest about the cost. You'll get power, but you'll also inherit fragility. Teams stop thinking, they wait. Creativity shrinks. When you're not in the room, nothing moves. You'll look like the hero often, and you'll also be the single point of failure. That may be fine if your goal is short-term control. It's brutal for long-term results. If you want the advantage without the collateral damage, there's a cleaner version. Keep the environment dynamic, but the rules stable. You can change priorities, but publish why, and lock the criteria for changing them. You can move fast, but keep one source of truth that never shifts without a time-stamped note. You can centralize decisions for a sprint, but teach the playbook as you go, so you're not the only one who can make the call. The edge still comes from clarity you own, not confusion you create. And if you're on the receiving end of controlled chaos, protect yourself. Name patterns out loud in neutral language. Ask for the rule, not the exception. Write down decisions and send a recap so the ground can't be quietly redrawn. Build your own compass by tracking dependencies and definitions. When the map keeps changing, the person who keeps a clean ledger becomes the new center of gravity. The controlled chaos trick is seductive because it works fast. But the real power move is rarer. Make things feel stable enough that others can move, while keeping just enough momentum that progress doesn't stall. Anyone can tangle a process and call it mastery. The better play is making a moving system legible. That's how you look essential without trapping anyone, and how you stay ahead without leaving a mess behind. You ever meet the person who always discovers a fire 5 minutes before the big moment, and somehow they're the only one who knows where the extinguisher is? They rush in, cape flapping, and everyone is grateful because crisis averted. That's the manufactured crisis trick. It looks like competence. It's actually control. Here's how it plays. They hold the only password. They set the only process. They quietly skip a checklist that would have caught the issue yesterday, then sound the alarm today. We're blocked, they announce, but I can fix it. And they do, theatrically. The room sighs with relief, and the hero glow sticks to them a little tighter. Psychologically, urgency steals our attention, and relief rewards the person who resolves it. If no one names the pattern, it repeats. The goal isn't to point fingers or stir drama. The goal is to see the game clearly and stop paying it with your attention. The fastest way out is calm clarity. When you name what's happening without heat, people feel safer and defenses drop, which keeps the conversation practical instead of personal. That's the pivot that opens the door to a real solution, not another performance rescue. Picture a launch morning. A message pops up. The integration failed. Only I can roll it back. Your heart jumps. Schedules ripple. And suddenly the hero is at the center. Instead of reacting, slow the frame. You reply, I've noticed this same blocker appears right before milestones. Let's fix the system, not just the moment. Now you're reframing. You're turning a recurring emergency into a preventable pattern. Reframing common habits is exactly how you move a team from panic to progress. Use simple, human language and grounded examples. Ask questions anyone can answer. When did this start? What changed since yesterday? Who else has access? Small concrete lines pull people out of drama and into clarity. Conversational, specific examples make abstract problems easier to see and solve. Then you make the invisible visible. You say, "It looks like we keep centralizing knowledge in one place." That creates brittle points that break at the worst time. That's naming the pattern aloud. In psychology, naming the thing reduces the fog around it, and people can work the problem without ego in the way. The antidotes are boring on purpose. Document the steps so anyone can run them. Share access so no single person is the bottleneck. Add a pre-flight checklist that catches the failure while it's tiny. Normalize early warnings, not last-minute heroics. And when someone still tries the trick, stay steady. "Let's write down the fix and schedule a handoff this afternoon," you say. You're rewarding prevention over spectacle. A subtle note if you've used the trick yourself. You don't need to keep proving your value with chaos. Real pros create systems that don't need them every hour. That doesn't make you replaceable. It makes you trustworthy. The manufactured crisis trick feeds on attention, secrecy, and the rush of being needed. Starve it with transparency, shared ownership, and quiet routines. The strongest teammate isn't the person who keeps saving the day. It's the one who makes the day not need saving in the first place. Ever notice how some people drop their strength like a microphone and everyone rushes in to catch the silence for them? One minute they're perfectly capable, the next they're too fragile to handle the simplest thing, and suddenly you're carrying the blame, the plan, and their work. That's the victim card trick. It looks like helplessness, but it's actually strategy. Pretend to be powerless so others will defend you, do your heavy lifting, and protect your image. The performance is quiet, a sigh at the right moment, a story that selects every hardship and omits every choice, a trembling voice in public, so anyone who questions them looks cruel. On cue, decent people step in, not because they're fools, but because empathy is easy to trigger. Psychologically, pity is a shortcut to the rescuer reflex. People are more cooperative when they feel heard, and manipulators exploit that by making you prove you are compassionate. Picture a co-worker who keeps missing deadlines. When you ask what happened, they wilt. They talk about how no one taught them the system, how their last boss was unfair, how they are trying so hard and nothing ever works. They apologize for being bad at this, then go quiet. The room fills with rescuers. Someone volunteers to fix the spreadsheet. Someone else offers to talk to the manager. Criticism becomes taboo because it feels like kicking someone who's already down. And the person who started the fire leaves smelling like smoke and sympathy. Here's the flip. Compassion doesn't require you to become the mule. You can care without carrying. Start by acknowledging their feeling just once with a calm, even tone. "I can hear this is frustrating." It seems small, but acknowledgement lowers defenses and keeps the conversation from turning into a fight. Then, place the responsibility where it belongs. What is your plan to get the report done by Friday? Notice the wording. Not, "How can I help?" but "What is your plan?" The first invites you into the harness. The second leaves the reins in their hands. Watch their reaction. A genuinely overwhelmed person moves toward solutions, asking clarifying questions, proposing steps, accepting limits. A performer often doubles down on fog, more excuses, more dramatics, or a new villain to blame. If they try to recruit allies and triangulate, keep the conversation one-to-one. "Let's keep this between us so we can sort it out." If they call accountability an attack, return to the facts. "This task is still open. What happens next?" Emotion can be valid. Facts are still facts. Name the dynamic gently if you need to. I want to be supportive without doing this for you. Or, I'm happy to help you think, but I'm not taking it on. That's not cold, that's clear. Clarity is mercy for everyone involved. If you lead a team, make expectations specific and visible, with timelines and who does what. Keep your kindness, keep your tone steady, and keep your boundaries firm. Kindness without boundaries becomes fuel for manipulation. Boundaries without kindness become brittle and invite a different fight. You want warm and unmoving. Sometimes the most powerful move is time. I can't step in right now. Circle back with your plan this afternoon. It denies the rush that the trick relies on. If the tears or theatrics escalate, disengage respectfully. I'll let you take a beat. We can revisit when we're ready to talk solutions. You don't have to fix a performance. You don't have to justify your refusal to perform in it. And if you recognize yourself on the other side of this, here's an honest doorway out. Ask for help without pretending to be helpless. I'm responsible for this, and I'm stuck on the second step. Can you point me to a resource? That sentence preserves dignity, invites support, and doesn't conscript anyone into rescue. The victim card trick only works if you accept the role it assigns you. Don't. Offer empathy, not absolution. Offer options, not escape routes. Offer space, not a stage. When you stop letting false helplessness dictate your choices, you trade the weight on your shoulders for clear eyes and steady feet. You can stay kind and stay strong at the same time. That's the real move. Ever notice how some people carry a tiny thundercloud that only rains right before they need a favour? One moment you are sipping coffee, the next you are holding their entire sky. I call this the Sympathy harvest trick, and it runs on a simple engine. Plant a sad story, water it with sighs, and collect your kindness like a crop. Here is how it often unfolds. They start with a heavy confession that lands like a weight on your chest. My week has been brutal. My family is falling apart. My back is killing me. The universe is against me. The stories might be true, but they are also exaggerated or perfectly timed. Then comes the pivot. I hate to ask, but could you cover this deadline? Could you spot me just this once? Could you talk to the boss for me? It is crafted to make no feel cruel and yes, feel noble. You are not just agreeing to a favour, you are saving a person in distress. Who wants to be the villain who refuses a lifeline? The sympathy harvest works because it weaponizes vulnerability. Real vulnerability invites connection. This version directs you toward a transaction. You can hear it in the rhythm. The struggle swells, the stakes rise, and the request appears as the only humane ending to the story. You get cast as the hero. You also get cast as the resource. Where do you see it? The colleague whose calamities cluster near every big project, spinning tales of chaos until someone else stays late. The friend who turns hangouts into emergency triage, gathering rides, money or introductions, then vanishing until the next crisis. The acquaintance who drops public sorrow to gather applause, free labour, or a pass when rules should apply. The hook is always pity, and the harvest is always leverage. So how do you tell the difference between pain you should honour and pain being used like a lever? Look for pattern, timing and reciprocity. When the storm always hits as a request arrives, that is timing. When their needs are a one-way street and your needs vanish into fog, that is reciprocity. When every account of hardship is missing details that would show agency or options, that is pattern. Another tell? Punishment. If you decline and they sulk, shame, whisper, or retaliate. You are not dealing with honest hurt. You are dealing with a tactic. You can keep your heart open without becoming a harvest. Start with empathy that has edges. I am sorry you're going through that. I cannot take this on. Then return the ball gently. What have you tried so far? What would help you move one step today? Offer what you can without promising what you cannot. I can share one resource. I can read a page, not the whole draft. I can help this time, and I will not be available next time. Keep it short. Kind, clear, refuse the trap of over-explaining. A short no is a complete sentence. Silence after your boundary gives them space to adjust without you filling the gap with compromises. Notice how quickly some storms clear when the harvest fails. If the clouds vanish and they are suddenly fine, you just witness the trick evaporate. With loved ones, set rhythms that reduce emergencies. Let us check in on weekends, not midnight panics. If the struggle is real and ongoing, suggest professional help and practical plans. With co-workers, document agreements, keep requests where they belong, and loop in the right people so your compassion does not become a private pipeline. With acquaintances, reduce availability, not kindness. Wave from the shore. Do not jump in if they keep poking holes in the boat. Compassion without clarity drains you. Clarity without compassion hardens you. You want both. Notice the story, name the request, choose your response. Praise effort, not helplessness. Celebrate recovery, not crisis. And remember this, you can care deeply and still decline. Your generosity is a garden, not a field for harvesting. Keep your gate, tend your soil, and give what grows by choice, not by guilt. Ever notice how the locked room opens for the person who looks a little too busy to be locked out? That is the essence of the Gatecrash Trick. Act like a solution in motion, and most barriers will quietly step aside. It starts before you reach the door. You decide who you are in that space, not who you wish you were, but who would obviously belong. Maybe you are the assistant fixing a glitch, the coordinator helping a speaker, the person who just came back from a call. You pick a role that explains why you are arriving now and why you look focused. Then your body does the talking. Shoulders square, eyes scanning for where you are going, not who might stop you. A steady pace, not rushed, not hesitant. The confidence is not loud, it is efficient. Props are a passport, a lanyard from another event, a clipboard, a headset, a tote bag with cables. Even a coffee carrier can suggest you are mid-task. Carry it like it belongs to your day, not like a disguise. Clothing choice matters too. Neutral colours, comfortable shoes, sleeves you can push up. You are there to do something, and people doing something tend to pass through. When you encounter the guard, the volunteer, or the receptionist, do not ask if you can go in. Asking creates a decision where you want an assumption. Use directional language. I am heading to prep in the back. Thank you. I am dropping this at the green room. Appreciate it. If they stop you, you pivot into specific questions that imply belonging. Which way are they staging the panelists? Are they checking wristbands at the far entrance or here? Specifics prime the other person to place you in the picture they already hold in their head. Timing is part of the trick. Slip in during transitions when doors are opening for groups and attention is diluted. Walk in beside a cluster that clearly belongs. Match their pace. Let the wave carry you. If someone scans badges, be busy with the prop and the conversation. The less you present as an isolated decision, the more you are treated as part of the flow. Names and departments unlock minds. You do not have to know a person. You need to know a label. I am with operations. I am supporting logistics. I am meeting the host. These phrases sound like glue. They turn you from an outsider to a helper. If pressed for a name, give the title of the role you serve. I am covering for the stage manager. If they ask who authorized you, bridge to the nearest authority. I was sent up from registration to help them clear the backlog. It is always about relieving pressure. Once inside, you must belong at the speed of trust. Find the person who looks like they run something and offer a micro help. Do you want me to move these chairs? Need those cables taped? Where do you want the extra bottles? The moment you are useful, you are part of the fabric. Listen for acronyms and repeat them back. Align your language. If they say back of house, say back of house. If they call it staging, use staging. Words are the uniform of the group. Your first conversation matters. Keep it short, purpose-forward, and slightly hurried, as if you truly have somewhere to be. You are not there to socialize, you are there to function. Later, when the intensity dips, you can shift into normal conversation. But the opening minutes are for establishing that you are an expected piece, not a curious extra. Have a graceful fallback for when you are challenged. Do not freeze or argue. Use the honest mistake frame and pivot to exit or reroute. My fault, wrong door, I will swing around to the main entrance. Or the cooperative fix, totally, I will wait here while you check. Meanwhile, you step aside, become small, and often the moment passes. If it does not, you leave clean, circle, and try a different entrance or a different role. There is also the invocation of urgency. People bend rules when a delay hurts the whole. You never make it about your convenience, you make it about preventing a snag. The keynote needs a mic swapped. The vendor truck is blocking the alley. If your presence keeps the machine smooth, the machine will absorb you. Ethically, know your line. The Gatecrash Trick should never be used to harm, steal, or breach private lives. Think of it as social aikido for underdogs who need a seat at the table, not a weapon to undercut those doing honest work. Use it to meet mentors, observe masterclasses, or step into rooms where you can add value but lack the invite. The power is in opening doors, not burning bridges. Here is the quiet truth underneath it all. Most people do not want to be the obstacle. They want to be helpful, to keep things moving, to avoid embarrassment. When you look like momentum, when you speak like service, and when you choose roles that reduce friction, people feel good letting you pass. So choose your role before you arrive. Carry a prop that supports the story. Use directional language, not permission-seeking. Move in the slipstream of groups. Offer a quick, useful action. Echo the room's vocabulary. Prepare a clean exit if questioned. Done right, you are not crashing anything. You are simply stepping into the space that busy people assume you already occupy. And the best part? The more you practice belonging, the less you will need tricks. Your presence becomes the pass. Your usefulness becomes the name on the list. And one day, when someone else appears at the threshold, a little too busy to be locked out, you will understand exactly what to do. Blink, and someone else will wear your idea better than you do. That sting you feel when a post, a product, or a phrase you floated yesterday shows up today with a shinier bow and a checkout link. That sting has a name. The Copycat Trick. Here is how it plays out. Someone notices a spark before you realize it is a fire. They do not wait to perfect it. They package it. They do not make a masterpiece. They make it available. They borrow the shape of your success, strip it to the parts that move, and ship while you are still deciding which font feels right. It is not about artistry. It is about momentum. It is not originality that wins. It is speed, to perceived value. That is the copycat trick in one sentence. Picture this. A designer shares a clever dashboard layout on a social feed, just a free carousel of swippable slides. A few people applaud. By the weekend, another creator has built a downloadable kit that mimics the same flow, added a 2-line promise, a short tutorial, and a simple payment button. They are not the original. They are the first to make it easy to own. One person starts a conversation, the other person sells the microphone. Psychologically, people choose what is familiar and available now. We lean toward what our eyes have seen and what our hands can grab. If something looks like a proven pattern, our brains lower the guardrails because recognition feels like safety. The copycat trick thrives on that bias. Take an idea that already has social proof. Keep its silhouette and rush it to a place where it can be clicked, booked, or bought. Familiar plus available feels trustworthy. Psychologically, that works because our minds reward certainty, speed, and simplicity more than novelty for novelty's sake. The people who use this move are not always villains. Some are opportunists with a stopwatch. They watch for weak signals in public places and trace the mechanics, not the soul. They ask, what is the promise people are reacting to? What is the exact first step that delivers a quick win? How can I make that step even simpler? Then they move. They do not copy the portrait. They copy the posture. There is a rude truth hiding here. Ideas do not earn until they arrive. And arrival is not when you think it is perfect. Arrival is when someone else can try it with almost no friction. That is why the copycat trick feels unfair. It is not that they had your idea, many people did. It is that they made it show up before you did. A friend will say, I had that idea first. And you can respond softly, ideas are invitations. Execution is RSVPing before the doors close. Another friend will insist, but that is my style. You can answer, your style is more than the outline. It is your voice, your story, your proof, your care. If someone can replicate the outline and still win, it means the market wanted the outline faster than you were willing to give it. There is a ruthless version of this, and there is a right one. The ruthless version steals identity, copies language verbatim, chases the exact audience, and pretends to be the origin. That erodes trust and eventually boomerangs. The right version copies the mechanics, not the message. It respects the source while addressing a different angle, a different use case, or a different layer of value. It adds one clear improvement, and it credits inspiration when asked. It moves fast, but it does not erase the person who lit the match. If you fear being copied, your defense is not secrecy, it is cadence. Ship sooner, ship smaller, anchor the story to your lived experience, because a story cannot be cloned without sounding thin. Build distribution, because distribution is gravity and gravity wins over time. Keep a backlog of tiny enhancements, because the moment someone mirrors your move, you release the next beat and stay the reference point, not the replica. If you plan to copy, do it with discipline. Copy the friction you will remove. Copy the distance you will shorten. Copy the clarity you will bring. Add something material. Make it easier, faster, clearer, or more trustworthy. Then let the market decide. It is not about doing less. It is about doing smarter and framing the shift from first to think to first to deliver. That contrast matters because the mind hears not just the what, but the how. And it is the how that tilts decisions. In the end, the copycat trick is a mirror held up to our impatience. People reward whoever turns an idea into a result they can feel today. If you are the originator, beat the mirror by moving. If you are the fast follower, honor the source and earn your edge by improving the path. Speed gets attention. Depth builds staying power. The smart ones learn to hold both. That is the copycat trick. Ever notice how some people answer the question before anyone else even knows what to ask? They are not lucky, and they are not psychic. They are running the inside info trick, and it is a lot less mysterious than it sounds. Here is the truth most people miss. The world leaks. Companies leak through job postings that quietly reveal new markets, partners, or products. Platforms leak through tiny changes in their documentation or their release notes. Cities leak through permits and agendas. Even your competitors leak through customer support pages, outage logs, and the odd footnote buried in an announcement. These are not secrets in the illegal sense. They are simply unguarded whispers out in the open, and the people who stay ahead are the ones who train their ears to hear them. The inside info trick starts with a simple habit. Build a mental radar for overlooked signals. Scan the edges where information changes first and attention arrives last. Glance at the careers page before you check the home page. Read the last 2 paragraphs nobody reads, not just the headline everyone saw. Watch developer forums and change logs, because engineers announce where the product will be long before marketing tells you where it is. Skim sponsor lists and talk titles for upcoming conferences to guess who is pairing up, who is investing, and which themes are heating up. Look at city meeting agendas and permit filings, and you will know which storefronts are coming, which roads will change, and where demand is about to move. Once you spot a whisper, act before it becomes a shout. Turn the hint into a tiny, low-risk move that compounds. If a competitor quietly hires for expansion into a new region, draft a simple landing page in that language and warm up local partners so when they arrive, you already look established. If a platform raises its rate limits in a throwaway note, ship a feature that takes advantage of it while others are still paying attention to last month's rules. If a supplier's shipping records tick up, stock what will be scarce and promote what will be abundant. When a city posts a permit for a new venue near you, adjust staffing, inventory, or outreach before the foot traffic hits. The power is not only in knowing, it is in how you use what you know. Speak like a person who has receipts without waving them around. Say, because their latest job posting asks for expertise in community partnerships, I suspect their strategy is shifting toward events. So here is a 2-step plan to meet that wave. Back your suggestion with a calm trail of public facts, and you will sound decisive rather than speculative. People follow the voice that sounds like tomorrow is already on the calendar. You do not need special access. You need a simple system. Make a short watch list of the places that leak for your world. Careers pages, developer updates, patent filings, permit databases, industry forums, support status pages and conference agendas are a good start. Skim them on a fixed rhythm, then capture any signal in a short note that answers 3 questions. What changed, why it matters, and what we can try this week. If an idea passes that test, move on it while it is still small enough to be painless. The inside info trick is not a big swing. It is a steady rhythm of tiny edges that add up. Keep the ethics tight. If you would be uncomfortable saying where you learned it, do not use it. You do not need confidential leaks to win. The advantage comes from seeing public breadcrumbs early and connecting them faster than anyone else. That is how you stay 1 step ahead without stepping over any lines. Picture this. You walk into a meeting and float a quiet, specific idea that solves a problem no one has voiced yet. By the time others notice the issue, you have already shipped the fix. To them, you look bold. You are not. You are just listening where others are not. That is the inside info trick. Train your ear, move on whispers, and let the loud crowd wonder how you keep arriving before the doors even open. Ever had someone slip into your corner so smoothly you could swear they were always there? The smile, the nods, the "I agree with you" whispered like a password. It feels like finding a spare key under your own doormat. You relax. You let them in. That's the false ally trick. It's not about winning you over with logic. It's about winning your guard. They position themselves right beside you, mirroring your concerns, amplifying your ideas, and offering help in ways that seem generous but are really reconnaissance. They are not joining your side, they are studying your map. Picture this. You've been pushing a proposal for weeks. In the meeting, your co-worker leans in, says, "I think you're spot on. I can help tighten the pitch." They ask for your draft, your data, your talking points. They echo your language in the hallway, reassure you when you doubt, and make sure you feel supported. When it's go time, they loop in someone 2 levels up without you. The decision lands on their desk. They present it as a joint effort, but somehow you're the thank you slide and they are the headline. You don't notice the shift until the credits start sticking to their jacket like it was tailored that way. Why does this work? Psychologically, when someone mirrors your frustrations and praises your vision, it lowers defenses and creates a sense of safety. Being understood softens your vigilance. You share more, you ask less. You assume loyalty because it feels earned through empathy. The trickster then leans on reciprocity, that quiet pressure we feel to give back to those who appear to give to us. They front-load support, so the payback they want later seems only fair. There are tells if you're willing to notice. A false ally often agrees too quickly and too completely, like a perfectly tuned echo. They love access more than accountability. They ask for documents, names, timelines, and they want them fast. When stakes rise, they go oddly private, taking conversations to quiet corners while urging you to keep plans between us to avoid noise. They pose as your translator in rooms where you can speak for yourself. They chase proximity to power using your momentum as the glide path. How do you disarm the trick without turning cynical? Start by testing for shared risk, not shared rhetoric. Ask for a small, visible commitment that costs them something real, even if it's only time or reputation. If they say, "Let me send the recap," you say, "Great, include my name as lead and copy the team." A true ally is relieved by clarity. A false one looks for a tunnel. Build your ally map out loud. Triangulate. If someone wants to be your bridge, invite a third voice to stand on it. The trick thrives in one-on-one shadows. It wilts under shared sunlight. Put agreements in writing, even when everything feels friendly. A short, clear note that confirms who owns what and by when is not distrust. It's healthy scaffolding. Keep your drafts. Watermark your work in spirit, if not in file name, and log the history of your ideas in simple stamped recaps. Name your boundaries early. I'm glad we're aligned. I want to keep ownership on this piece while we collaborate. If that makes them bristle, you are not losing a friend. You are revealing a plan. Ask specific future questions. When we present, how do you see us dividing the roles? Listen for crisp, shared credit lines versus misty, "I'll handle it" assurances. The trick feasts on vagueness. And there's a reframe worth holding on to. Not everyone who agrees quickly is plotting. Some people truly get you. trust is still a gift worth giving. Just don't hand it over wrapped in wishful thinking. Make it a mutual construction, plank by plank, with weight-bearing tests along the way. When you feel the warm glow of being backed, remember the simple truth beneath the psychology. People who help you feel seen are not automatically safe. They are simply human like you, capable of goodness and of strategy. Awareness keeps your heart open and your work protected. It's not paranoia, it's design. Real allies share the lift and the bill. False allies borrow your umbrella, step into the doorway, and leave you in the rain. If that last image stung, it's because you've lived some version of it. So let's choose clarity. Keep your empathy. Guard your process. Verify the partnership in daylight. And when someone truly stands with you, the proof won't be in the promise. It will be in the pattern. A deadline slips. One person gets a soft laugh and a promise to circle back. Another gets a reprimand with extra meetings attached. Same mistake, different weather. That gap has a name. Someone just pulled the golden child trick. Here is how it quietly works. The golden child does not ask for special treatment. They arrange it in advance. They make themselves the path of least resistance. They learn the boss's map of what actually matters and repeat it back in their choices and language. They respond before they are asked, solve small frictions so the day moves easier, and narrate their thinking so people never wonder what they meant. Working with them feels smooth. Humans reward smooth. When the mind experiences less friction, it assumes competence and warmth. Psychologically, this taps into reciprocity and the halo we give to those who make life easier, so scrutiny softens without anyone admitting it. Next, they bank public wins early. Not huge ones, visible ones. They volunteer for a task that touches many people, deliver, and make sure credit lands in the room where judgments are formed. Once that first story sticks, people look for evidence that confirms it. A late email becomes dedication, not disorganization. A missed step becomes an experiment, not negligence. The same behavior reads differently because the label came first. Watch the tone they use when things go wrong. No dramatic excuses, no heavy apologies either. They frame the miss as data. They point to the system, the learning, the adjustment that is already underway. It sounds reasonable because it is reasonable. And because they have already paid into the trust account, their rate is better than yours. They also weave social proof without bragging. They borrow credibility by being in proximity to power and by being useful to those people in routine, unglamorous ways. They send clean summaries everyone can forward. They run the meeting that keeps the real meeting on time. They are around. They are helpful. They are remembered. When a rule is up for interpretation, decision makers lean toward the person who has made their life easier 10 small times, rather than the person who showed up once with a big pitch. Underneath, a few human tendencies are doing the heavy lifting. We return favours even when we do not keep score out loud. We generalise early signals and protect our own judgment by sticking with our first impression. We like people who reduce our mental load. Put together, it creates a bubble of grace. Psychologically, this blend of reciprocity, first impression bias, and cognitive ease is exactly why the golden child trick is so effective. So, what do we do with this? There are two honest plays. If you are on the outside, stop trying to win big arguments and start making small things easier. Map the priorities, reflect them in your actions, and make your wins visible without noise. Narrate your intent before your work is judged. Ask for clarity early so you can deliver cleanly later. A series of small visible reliabilities can change how your misses are interpreted when they inevitably happen. When people understand the why and feel considered, they cooperate more and resist less, which shifts outcomes in your favour. If you are tempted to use the trick from the inside, choose how far you push it. There is a line between being reliably useful and being untouchable. When the goal is to move work forward, trust becomes a tool for speed. When the goal is to dodge accountability, trust becomes a shield and eventually a trap. Reframe the aim. Not to be the exception to the rules, but to be the reason the rules feel lighter for everyone. That shift in intent changes how you show up, how you communicate, and how people experience you. In the end, the golden child trick is not magic. It is maintenance. It is the compound interest of tiny, visible, repeatable usefulness, paid in advance of your ask. You can resent it, or you can study it. Build the kind of reputation that buys you grace when you need a second chance, and extend that same grace to others, so the culture you benefit from is one you would be proud to live in if the roles were reversed. The room goes quiet when the punctuality cop strolls in late, tapping their watch at everyone else like nothing happened. You know that feeling, right? Your jaw tightens. You start calculating all the times they broke the rule they're sermonizing about. That tension you feel is not an accident. It's leverage. There's a trick some people use to move ahead without looking like they're pushing. It's holding others to a standard they ignore themselves. It sounds small. It isn't. It gives them moral altitude. They claim the high ground while standing on a trap door. Here's how it shows up. Your manager preaches transparency, then makes big decisions in private, and shames the team for not looping them in sooner. A friend says honesty is everything, then changes the story when it makes them look better and calls you disloyal for raising an eyebrow. A peer insists on strict process, then slides out of it just this once, and frames you as the problem when you ask for the same grace. The game is simple: rules for you, exceptions for me. And if you flinch, they say you're sensitive, difficult, or not a team player. Why does this work so well? Because our minds are wired to react to fairness. When standards feel shared, we cooperate. When they feel one-sided, we resist. People become more cooperative when they feel the rules apply evenly and they have a say in them. When that's missing, defiance rises and trust falls. Psychologically, shared standards give us a sense of fairness and autonomy, which opens the door to better cooperation and more honest problem-solving. Let's put it in a scene. You ask a colleague for feedback ahead of a presentation. They say, "You should have sent this last week. We have deadlines." You nod. "You're right, I'm late." Then you ask gently, "Last month you sent me slides the night before. Can we agree on one shared deadline we both stick to?" They shift. They might say, "That was different." That phrase is the engine of the trick. Different is where the exceptions live. Different is where the leverage hides. So how do you handle it without setting the room on fire? Start by naming the feeling before the rule. Try. I want us to be fair with each other. And I get tense when it seems like the rule changes depending on who's involved. Mirroring the emotion lowers defences. If you skip that and go straight to enforcing a rule, people feel attacked and dig in. When someone feels understood, they become more open. If you skip that step, it can feel dismissive and the conversation stalls. After that, anchor to a shared principle. Can we agree punctuality applies to both of us? Or let's write down our response time so neither of us has to guess. If they keep shifting the target, pull the target into the light. Say, "What's the standard here? Let's define it so we both know when we're meeting it." If they say, Use your judgment. Test it with a real case. Great. If I reply next morning instead of tonight, is that within good judgment? You're inviting them to own the same rule they're wielding. Another move is calibrating the consequence. If missing this deadline means we revisit responsibilities, does that also apply when you miss it? You're not threatening, you're balancing the ledger. When the standard lives only on your side of the table, it isn't a standard, it's a weapon. You can also grant grace with a receipt. Totally get that life happens. I'm fine giving you the extra day. Can we agree the same applies when I need it? Document the agreement in plain language, not as a gotcha, but as a boundary. People who rely on double standards prefer fog. Clarity turns off the fog machine. And there's a deeper check here. Ask yourself, where do I do this? It's easy to spot hypocrisy across the room and miss it in the mirror. Maybe you expect immediate replies while taking your time. Maybe you want full honesty and offer selective transparency. The fix starts with catching your own shortcuts. When you hold yourself to what you ask of others, you build the credibility to call for it in the room. Credibility is quiet power. Sometimes you'll meet the professional shapeshifter who won't share a standard, no matter how clearly you invite it. At that point, the move is to zoom out, make the shared principle bigger than the moment. I care about us trusting each other. Trust grows when rules match the people enforcing them. If that's not how we want to work, I need to rethink my role in this. You are not demanding. You are deciding what game you'll play. Here's the twist most people miss. You don't beat the double standard by winning their argument. You beat it by removing the advantage. Speak to the feeling, name the rule, make it mutual, write it down. If they won't play fair, you choose a different field. The point is not to catch them. The point is to stop letting moving goalposts run your day. So the next time someone waves a rule at you from their exception, breathe, ask for the shared version. Keep your voice calm. And remember, the standard is strong only when it applies to both sides. If it doesn't, it's not a standard, it's a trick, and you don't have to fall for it. There's a kind of message that sneaks past your ears and lands straight in your gut, and when you replay the words, they sound perfectly clean. That is the trick. On the surface, it is harmless. Under the surface, it is a high-frequency signal meant for a specific crowd. If you have ever felt singled out without a single rude word spoken, you have heard a dog whistle. Here is how it works. The person chooses language with two meanings. One meaning is safe and respectable. The other meaning is the real message, recognizable only to the people who share the code. Because the safe meaning is always available, the speaker has cover. If challenged, they can shrug and say, "That is not what I meant." The power is not just in the words, but in the timing, the tone, the context, and the history that audience members already know. You will see it in hiring when someone says, "We need a great cultural fit." Simple words that can mean, do they share our values, or do they look and sound like us? You will hear it in performance reviews with phrases like leadership presence, polish, aggressive, or not quite a team player. The coded meaning is often about who is allowed to take up space and whose style is labelled a problem. In sales, a manager might say, "We want clients with stability," which can secretly mean a certain kind of client and not others. In politics, you hear phrases like protect the integrity of the neighbourhood or defend tradition. To some, these sound like neutral calls to caution. To others, the bell rings loud and clear. Keep certain people out. Keep things the same. Why is this trick so effective? because it recruits allies without announcing it. It tests who is in the club. It pressures bystanders to nod along. Most of all, it lets the speaker deny everything. When you cannot quote a single bad word, they keep their reputation, and you are left feeling oversensitive. That is the design. You are not imagining it. The unease you feel is a valid signal that the meaning did not match the words. So how do you beat it? Start by refusing the fog. Ask for definitions and criteria in plain language. What does cultural fit mean in this decision? Which behaviours show leadership presence in this role? What would be an example right now? The moment someone has to define the term, the hidden meaning loses oxygen. Keep your tone calm and curious. You are not accusing. You are creating an honest record. Translate the euphemism out loud, without heat. When a colleague says, "I am not sure they are polished," you say, "Do you mean the writing quality or the accent or the style of dress? Which one mattered to the client outcome?" When a leader says, "We need to protect quality," you say, "Great. Which metrics do we use to measure quality here?" Force the conversation back to objective standards. If no clear standard exists, that is a clue the dog whistle was doing the heavy lifting. Use the mirror. Repeat their phrase and then add a neutral reframe. You said, "Not a team player." The behaviour I saw was they challenged the timeline in the meeting. Are we labelling disagreement as not a team player? If they backpedal, you have caught the code. If they clarify with evidence, even better. Either way, you move the talk from vibes to specifics. Create a paper trail. Follow up in writing with clarifying questions and summaries. Thanks for the feedback earlier. To confirm, when we say leadership presence, we mean timely updates, clear recommendations, and steady tone under pressure. Did I miss anything? This makes it harder for someone to switch meanings later and lets allies step in. It also gives the quiet skeptics permission to ask for clarity next time. Bring more ears. Dog whistles work best in small rooms where the code is shared. When you widen the audience, the risk of exposure grows. Say, "Let us loop in talent to align on the criteria." Or can we review this against our posted rubric? In group settings, practice the brave, boring question. What do we mean by that? It is not dramatic, but it cancels the trick. If you are a manager or leader, you can make the tactic useless. Before decisions, write down the criteria and examples of what good looks like. Ban vague labels in reviews, unless they are paired with specific evidence. Train interviewers to explain their ratings in plain language and return any feedback that hides behind coded words. Celebrate people who challenge the code with kindness and facts. If you are a bystander, you have more power than you think. Echo the target's request for clarity so they are not alone. I am also unclear on what polished means in this case. Could we anchor it to the client requirements? When a dog whistle is blown, sometimes the most disruptive thing you can do is act like you did not hear the code at all and respond only to the literal surface meaning. It forces the speaker to either drop it or say the quiet part out loud. Be careful with your own language too. Ask yourself, would this phrase mean the same thing to someone who does not share my background? If not, pick a cleaner word. Treat clarity as respect. Treat vagueness as a risk. One more thing, not every vague phrase is a dog whistle. People are imprecise all the time. The tell is a pattern. If a word keeps showing up to hold someone back or nudge someone forward, and nobody can pin it down without the air getting strange, you are likely hearing the whistle. Trust your pattern recognition. Then use the tools. Define, translate, mirror, document, widen the room. You do not need to win a debate. You just need to make the coded message impossible to use. The trick thrives in shadows. Shine a small, steady light. That is all it takes to make a secret signal sound like what it always was. A flimsy way to manipulate without getting caught. When the meaning must be spoken plainly, most people choose a better meaning, and the few who will not reveal themselves. That is how you spot the trick. Strip it of its power and keep your ground without losing your voice. If you can name the game, you can stack the deck without touching a card. That's the hidden rule trick. It's the art of changing or inventing rules other people don't even realize are shaping the outcome, then quietly playing by them while everyone else tries to win a game that no longer exists. Think about a meeting where the loudest voice always wins. You can invent a rule before anyone knows it's a rule. We've got 17 minutes, 1 minute per person for a take, then we decide. Suddenly, volume loses to brevity. You defined the clock, you defined speaking order, and you defined what happens at the end. Everyone follows because you said it confidently and early. That's the hidden rule trick. Consider an interview. Most people answer what they're asked. You can shift the rules by naming success. Here's how I'd measure my first 3 months. Reduce response time by half, draft a playbook, and train a backup. You just invented a scoreboard and put yourself on home turf. The interviewer now evaluates you by the rules you created. In negotiations, the common game is price versus value. Change it to risk versus certainty. Say, let's agree we're optimizing for 0 surprises. Here's a plan that guarantees a smooth rollout. You moved the conversation from haggling to protection. Now your higher price looks like insurance rather than cost. Emails can be rule laboratories. If a thread spirals, establish a frame. To keep this actionable, I'll recap decisions and owners at the end of this message. 1 sentence, new rules. Or you decide the default. If I don't hear by Thursday, I'll proceed with option B. People rarely fight a thoughtful default. Opt-out is harder than opt-in. You quietly wrote the operating manual. Even the room can be rewritten. Walk in with a printed 1-pager. Put it in front of everyone and say, this is our agenda and the decision criteria we agreed to last time. Maybe no one remembers the exact words. You just gave memory a map. People trust maps. Here's a subtle one. Rename the problem. If a project is late, most will slog through status updates. You say, we're not doing a bug hunt. We're running a save the deadline sprint. 3 constraints, 1 outcome. New language, new rules. There's now a finish line and a way to cross it. You can invent stopping rules too. Dominant personalities drag debates forever. You can say, we're choosing the best viable option, not the perfect one. If we have 2 options that meet the goal, we pick the simplest. Congratulations, you created an end condition. Meetings evaporate into decisions when someone writes the end of the story. There is a clean and a dirty version of this trick. The clean version is transparent rule-making that clarifies decisions and reduces chaos. The dirty version is pretending a rule exists when it doesn't. Don't lie about policy. Don't forge authority. Instead, claim process. Offer clarity. People cling to clarity. If someone challenges your invented rule, keep calm and normalize it. Say, happy to adjust. I proposed it to keep us focused. What do you suggest? Most of the time, they accept your frame or propose a small tweak. Either way, you're still in the driver's seat because you showed you're the one who sets the lane markers. Practice in small places. At lunch, say, let's do quick round-robin orders so we can pay and go. In a brainstorming session, say, first 5 minutes are silent writing, then we share. In a project kickoff, ask, can we agree what done means in one sentence? Each time you're planting a rule that saves time and defines success. People like saved time and defined success. They will thank you for your trick without knowing it was a trick. If you meet a master of the hidden rule, spot their tells. They speak first and set deadlines. They define the words everyone else repeats. They offer summaries and defaults. They own the whiteboard, the recap email, the one-pager. They sound helpful because they are. Helpfulness is the most disguising cloak for power. To use this ruthlessly but fairly, remember 3 guardrails. First, propose rules that make decisions faster and outcomes clearer. Second, give others a way to tweak your rule so they feel agency. Third, attach your rule to a shared goal everyone already wants. If the rule feels like progress, it gets adopted. If it feels like control, it gets resisted. Now, craft a sentence you can use tomorrow. Before we dive in, can we agree on how we'll decide and when we'll stop? That's it. Name the game. Write the ending. Let everyone else play catch-up while you walk straight to the finish line. The hidden rule trick isn't about being the smartest. It's about being the person who says what game we're playing and saying it early enough that everyone else forgets there was another game in the first place.